Hello, and welcome to another edition of the How Long to Beat podcast. I am Thea, and I am joined by my fellow co-hosts, Roy.
Hey, it's Roy.
Matt.
Guten Tag.
And Diallo.
Happy time zone. So the Twitcher in me is leaking out, I guess.
We will be going over, as usual, what we've beaten, retired, and playing recently, gaming-wise, and then we will be having a discussion over our very first video game that started this crazy hobby of ours. So to start it off, we're going to talk about what games we've beaten, and who wants to go first?
I could start. I feel like I have an eclectic mix this month, I feel like. So I'm going to start with what was the 200th game, unique game, not like counting repeats that I've completed, which was Drake of the 99 Dragons.
Yeah, what the fuck did make me want to play that?
Okay, so...
What the hell?
I've always heard this game is awful, so it's been on my Steam wishlist for a long time for exactly that reason. So, It went on sale for like $3. And my friend is like, yo, I see Drake of the 99 Dragons for $3 on your wishlist. I'm gonna buy it for you. And I'm like, sick. And then I realized I was like 1 or 2 games away from my 200th game. I'm like, I could stream this with all my friends, and it would be really funny for that to be my 200th game. So I played it. So, I am going to start with a controversial statement. The game is bad, but it's not as awful as I think people might think. But it's still bad, mind you. It is a hot take. I don't feel like it's worst game of all time, but it is bad kind of thing. So, like, first off, I will say since I was playing the Steam PC version, I did play the version with better load times, smoothed out a few issues that the game had, but not there were so many issues that's like saying you added some drops of water to the Pacific Ocean.
Right.
Very strange game. I will say you can tell that the devs who made this game really thought they were going to be making like the hottest shit. Like, there's a real sense of confidence in this game.
Oh, God.
So, the shooting is really generic, and not the best accuracy, but I've played, I guess I actually haven't played that many first-person shooters, so I don't know if I've explicitly played worse, but it was something I was able to get used to with time. Especially because, like, I've always heard the time slow ability is really useless in this game, because you gain the ability to slow time because you, I quote, now obey supernatural laws of time. Which the game just pops up to say that. But actually slowing down time is really useful because the game is so janky in how you move that and the enemy placement is so bad that slowing down time lets you react to everything. This game really loves either having an enemy directly in front of a doorway so you take immediate damage, or unless you move immediately, or like you enter a room and there's an enemy immediately behind you just out of sight. So doors are the biggest enemy in this game. Truly the survival horror experience. The cutscenes are bad, but they are really funny, which is an immediate plus. And I will say, at least part of the humor seems intentional. Like, the game definitely feels like Drake is meant to start out as a bit of a loser, basically. So, like, it fits some of it that he just sucks at the start of the game. Very strange that they decided to make you sit for 10 seconds after you die while people talk mad shit about you before just loading you to the start of the level on a separate load screen. It's not even loading while it does it. I never got any of the soul manipulation abilities to work. I tried rebinding the keys. I tried pressing different keys in case it was somehow just wrong. Did not work the entire time I played it. It does have like a fun schlockiness to it, is how I guess I would put it though. I did kind of end up enjoying just fucking like the movement is extremely flowy. And like just watching Drake's arms wig the fuck out because he can aim in any direction while he moves with your floaty jumps while slowing down time was enjoyable. And that's more than I can say for like, I don't know, Sonic Blast, which had 0 elements of fun in it. Kind of.
What?
Or like Alex Kidd in the Enchanted Castle, like Madden NFL 13 or whatever. But the final boss is infamously difficult, and it was indeed hard, except for the fact that eventually just glitched out and stopped being able to hit me, which allowed me to win.
Oh hell yeah! That's the
Like
best kind of boss.
the best kind. It's like the opposite of the one Fox game boss you had.
Right? Yeah. Oh god! Don't remind me of Iluri.
I can't help it. It's alluring.
Oh gosh.
But like there's one part where the game just puts like 3 fast enemies in front of you, and they just kind of spawn in weird ways. And I found that the best way to do it was to turn yourself backwards, jump backwards while firing a grenade launcher and just hoping it kills them. And then turning around and killing the last 3 while you are able to hit them but outside of their aggro range. And it looked extremely funny. So like, bad game, but fun to fuck around with friends. Like just kind of talk while you're playing it, and reasonably enjoyable. Honestly, for $3, worth checking out.
I'm gonna pass on that one. But apparently it is not very long either, is it? How long to beat? Does it have a
No,
4-hour completion? I guess that's
yeah, I
fine.
think I beat it in 7 hours myself. But part of that is I got a bit stuck on like one or two parts of the game, partially just not sure what to do. And I do think possibly I was just kind of fucking around to an extent because I was on call too.
Right.
So you could definitely blaze through it faster. But yeah, that was my 200th game of all things.
Quality.
Real quick hitter, two games technically, but really just one game with like a very minor variation version that I just played while waiting around for the podcast to start earlier was Mona and the Witch's Hat Deluxe, and it's like original Game Boy version. These are like homebrew indie games. They're extremely short platformers. They're on itch.io, I believe.
Yeah.
Was there an Itchmas game last year that was related to this? The
Yeah.
title sounds kind of familiar.
Delia the Traveling
it was definitely.
Witch was an Itchmas game, but it was a different.
Oh.
I don't think they were related. I could be wrong.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
just
could be wrong.
coincidence, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. This game can literally be in 5 minutes. It's like 4 levels, and each level is like a minute long. Part of why I brought it up so early is I really have nothing to say about it. Very, very basic, very, very small Game Boy platformer. It's kind of cute. There's not much else to say. It's free if you want to check it out, I guess.
Yeah.
I mentioned before that on Persona 3 Reload that I was on the last month, I did go through and finish it. Ending still makes me cry. Ended up staying up until 11 a.m. to finish it because I thought it would finish quicker, and I couldn't stop doing it once I started.
Staying up till 11 a.m. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, look, when Persona 3's ending starts, you can't stop. That's just the rule.
Right, of course.
I was really glad the remake completely nailed and the vibes of the entire end game. You know, the final boss, the end screens, just the general like apocalyptic end game vibe of like the final month, and they had all of that extremely well. I was in shambles watching them do like a title screen change of all things. I don't know if I consider this or FES the better version still. I feel they both have strengths and weaknesses. I'm not going to go into that too much because I talked about that last week. But I would say Reload did really impress me. It's still one of my favorite games ever, and it's in a convenient form that I suspect a lot of people would probably find easier to get into, at least, than the original. And it does have various benefits. This is like anybody who's willing to look at a long RPG, or even ones who might not normally, but are like, hey, if you give me something, I'll check it out. I do recommend this for everybody. Oh, everyone, whole world. But
I will not take this
yeah.
bait.
No.
I'm too old to stay up until 11 a.m.
Well, now you just wake up then. It's easy.
Yeah, right.
Citizen Sweeper, I finished that on Game Pass. This was a game when it was first revealed, like, what, 7 years ago? 6 years ago? Probably less time, I guess. I think it was revealed, like, during the pandemic or something, so I guess 5 years. But, I was really excited for this game pre-release. Because this is like, kind of a tabletop RPG-ish vibe, but it's not like a role-playing like a Baldur's Gate or something. It's more like, I don't know, a choose-your-own-adventure visual novel thing with dice elements to, like, determine certain actions and stuff. I don't know if I'm explaining it well, but I think it maybe gets, like, the general idea across at least. And,
I think so,
that's the
yeah.
kind of thing I'm into. But, I had kind of heard maybe this didn't meet everyone's expectations on release, even if they enjoyed it, and I do feel I kind of fall into that boat. Like, it was enjoyable. I do think if this is the kind of game that interests you with this kind of future, dystopian, kind of slightly neon energy, and, like, the RPG elements and stuff, that's worth checking out. But I will say it's somebody who has, like, I'm really big into science fiction, right? And that's part of what drew me into it. It does feel rather rote and kind of, I don't know, not that flashy in terms of some of the more sci-fi elements, like the idea of consciousness and robotics and whatnot. And I do feel like the narration in general sometimes gets a bit meandering and dry at points. But it did have some really fun characters in it, like the robot who starts from the vending machine, or robotic consciousness, I guess. The father-daughter, family unit, stuff like that. I am excited to play the sequel at some point, kind of thing. But it was mostly just kind of a good experience than, like, an amazing one.
It was.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But, and then, the last game that I finished, which I believe Leah seems to also enjoy, is a short little visual novel called One Night Hot Springs, which is free on Steam, is free on itch, and was really good. It's only like an hour to go through one route, but there's about 6 routes. I did only beat one route because I believe, without getting into any, like, spoilers about the story, I got what's basically the best route first time. And sometimes I just feel bad about going back to a game immediately to do routes that are, like, worse for the characters. If I got the really nice route for them, I don't know, they're just happy,
Yeah.
I blame Undertale. But,
Right.
it's a nice game. It's, the basic story is just, trans girl gets invited to go to the hot springs for her best friend's birthday, and you navigate the good and the issues that come with that. And, it's short. The art style is really nice. I've played other games from this creator before, like Tomato Clinic, which was also pretty good. I believe I nominated Tomato Clinic for one of the Itchmisses, I believe, but didn't win. I'm gonna
Yeah,
nominate
that
this
sounds
one for
familiar.
this. But art is really nice. Dialogue is good and very naturalistic. Story is good. I related to crap, I can't remember their name. Like, the best friend has a friend who like isn't trans but is doing their best to understand things, and I relate to them and how I've related to some of my friends in that zone, I guess is how I'd put it. I just can't remember their name all of a sudden. What a disaster. But this is really good. It's short, it's free. If you're somebody who's willing to look at visual novels, I highly recommend this one.
I guess this episode is coming out in July, but I guess we can make this the official podcast Pride Month recommendation. Seems like it's appropriate.
I was guessing I should have said Happy Pride as my intro this episode, but then didn't think of it in time. And also, it's coming out in July. I'll say it now. Happy Pride.
Yeah.
Happy Pride, yo. And that is everything that I finished. So somebody else can go.
Sure. Well, my bundle of bullshit starts with Quadelic GT, which is the speedboat racing game that I was first talking about last episode. I finished its campaign mode. Like I said the last time, this seems to be a pretty good budget game on Steam, where you have a pretty decent, lengthy campaign where you rise in the ranks and buy better speedboats to race around different environments. It's good stuff. I maxed out my so-called popularity meter, so I was the big celebrity at the end, whatever that means. And I bought the most expensive $1 million speedboat, so I got my money's worth, I guess, in this game. Good stuff. I recommend if you're looking for cheap speedboat racing games, but that's that for this game. Another game I've played, which is brand new, is called Frog Legs. This came out at the time of recording just a couple weeks ago, primarily on PC. Maybe only on PC. This is a little indie game that doesn't have a long run time either, but it's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek narrative about the frogs from the classic Frogger game somehow ending up in a parallel universe vortex thing and finding themselves in a couple different video game genres where they don't belong. And you have like your little funny little puzzle focused short narrative to play through. Not anything special. I don't remember how I found this. Maybe somebody just linked this to me because it got Frogger in it, and I really like Frogger. But it had me immediately. I bought it for a couple of friends because it's very cheap, just to annoy them, and forced them to play it, and we all did, and it's fine. It's a bit broken, technically, a bit broken at moments, because again, this is just like a small project from some person who probably made it alone in their bedroom. But I had some giggles, I had some chuckles. I didn't really regret my purchase or whatever. It's decent, it's fine, whatever.
Between this and a worry, it seems like you've got a penchant for finding the broken Steam games.
Yeah, it all comes with my knack for playing the odd, weird indie games all the time. I run into these traps willingly, to be honest. Yeah. But I always say I rather take an interesting broken game than a bland functioning one. That's just how I work.
It's like with Drake and the 99 Dragons.
Yeah, yeah. But I don't think I'm gonna go that far though. The next game that I beat is the mobile puzzle game simply called Purple by Bart Bonte, which I've already mentioned in, I think, multiple previous episodes. I'm now finally done with it. My opinion still stands as previously stated. It's another good, solid puzzle game, free on your phone from this developer. Basically on the same quality level as the previous ones, and I recommend these if you are into simple, intuitive, or intuition based puzzling on your phone for the little minutes in your day. This is fine. I'm done with it. I'm waiting for the next color that the guy
Rainbow.
into a game. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be surprising if at some point the big finale would be like a rainbow thing, to be honest. I could see that happening.
That
At
makes
some point,
sense.
surely he's gonna run out of colors.
Who knows? He
Now,
might go into the weird colors.
Yeah, he'll just start inventing them like the Vanta Black.
he's just
True.
gonna have like Eigengrau, which is the color you see when you close your eyes, that shade of darkness. Shit
I
like
mean,
that would
that
be
wouldn't
dope.
be a bad name for a game, actually.
I think, yeah, I think I've seen a couple indie games with that title actually. It's
Oh,
one of
okay.
my favorite colors, so I've googled it before. um,
Right. The next game, I think, seemed like it was driving you insane in the frickin' Discord.
He was also like under
Kinda.
the weather, so
Yeah.
True.
Here, the next two titles in my beaten list are kind of the meat and potatoes of my previous gaming journey. Yeah, I have been sick recently with, I don't know, the common cold or whatever, who gives a fuck. And I've been stuck to my desk on my the last weekend I've been stuck to my desktop PC, and all I pretty much did was binge listening to other podcasts and playing retro pinball video games. The main one, the first one that I did play on that weekend in my feverish state was Pinball of the Dead on the GBA, which I revisited because I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in like the first or second episode of the season. And back then, I'm pretty sure I said, yeah, this is a cool one. I want to go back to this and try to beat it. And I never did. But now, on this feverish weekend, I had the well, I didn't have the escape or whatever. I forced myself to get through it and get done what I had to get done. And yeah, this did drive me crazy almost for a bit, uh, but it was worth it in the end. Pinball of the Dead is obviously a pinball gimmick spin-off based on the House of the Dead series, the zombie shooter series. I think story-wise, this is specifically based on House of the Dead 2. From what I've read, I don't think I've ever played a proper House of the Dead game. This is my first proper introduction, if you want to call it that. And this pinball game has 3 tables based on probably different environments from the original game. And you do your usual pinball things. You figure out what the different parts of the table do, what the buttons do, what are the different goals and events that you can trigger, that sort of stuff to hunt a high score. But the really interesting thing with this one is that each table in this actually has boss fights that you can trigger. There's 6 different boss fights, which apparently are fairly faithfully recreated from the original shooter game. And you can trigger these 6 boss fights on each table. And if you beat them, you get more points in the regular high score version. But there's also a sort of campaign mode, if you want to call it that, where you are where you are tasked to beat all bosses on each table consecutively on the same, life amount, ball amount, or whatever. And that is what I challenged myself to do on that weekend. And it's mostly fine. This is a very well-made pinball game. It feels really well. The different table elements are very well thought out, I think. And it's one of the rare pinball video games, especially on a handheld console or on an older platform altogether, where you have a very, very thorough instruction setting in game that just tells you exactly what each element of the table does, which is
That's
incredibly
nice.
convenient. Yeah, it's super, super good, super well made. Getting these boss fights wasn't that big of a deal. Once you figure out what you have to do to trigger them, it's fairly easy to replicate that once you get the feel for the physics and whatever. The thing that drove me crazy was that on table number 1, the very first one, triggering the first 5 bosses has the same requirement. Repeating that over and over again, not that big of a deal. The sixth and final boss, however, had different requirements, where you had to hit a specific hole and some buttons in just really awkward positions. And that exact moment was probably where I spent most of my hours playing this goddamn pinball game, just because of how awkward the placement was of these trigger pieces. That did drive me crazy, almost. I did post about that on the Discord plenty of times. But once that was done as well, and I was able to move on to table number 2 and table number 3, which of course have their own layouts and trigger requirements to get those bosses done. It was fairly smooth sailing from there on out because none of those trigger requirements were as awkward as the specific number 6 boss on the first table. That just threw me off. Still a challenging game, but it is very much a pinball game where you can learn the feel of the physics and gain control over the ball. And as soon as you realize that the pinball flipper is not just a baseball bat, but also a baseball glove, a catcher's glove, where you can hold the ball, that opens up so much more to really control the pinball action with precision. And it was actually really, really satisfying to learn that over multiple hours while I was stuck in my home that weekend and really get good at this and finally beat this campaign mode, quote unquote. I genuinely highly recommend this goddamn gimmick spin-off pinball game on a Game Boy Advance. It's one of the best pinball video games I have played so far. It's really, really good.
I'll probably
Yeah.
download it or grab it at some point then. Just I don't know if I'll be able to beat the Dark Souls of pinball here, but
Right. I mean, it's definitely just good for a couple runs out of fun, for sure.
yeah.
And it has a save feature. You can save in the middle of a run and return to it later on. So
Can you
it's not
save
even
in the middle of a table, or do you have to save between tables?
No, it's actually in the middle of a table. It
Oh,
doesn't
that's very
save the
interesting.
exact position of everything, but you can return and have the same amount of balls and points and whatever. I think a couple triggers might be reset, but you can basically get back in there. It kind of felt, because you can of course use the save feature to return to a previous moment after you lost all balls and got a game over or whatever. It kind of felt at some point like strategic save file reloads that you would do in a horror survival game or whatever. I don't know.
I mean,
just
that tracks
kind of
because it's
works.
Pinball of the Dead.
Exactly. Yeah. It was very vibey. At some point while playing, we had a thunderstorm outside, and it was just like, this is gaming. This is the best.
Oh yeah,
Just complete atmosphere. Yeah.
this is
Well, going from this high point, though, of my pinball odyssey, I was planning, and I'm still planning, to try out more retro pinball video games. And one of the ones that I have been able to play that weekend was a game simply called Pinball on the NES. It's one of the original black box NES games with their infamous simple one-word titles. And I feel like with these early NES black box games, it's very much, you either get a stone cold classic that just is a perfect simple thing with no faults, or it's something like this where the single title is a fitting metaphor for how bland this game is. This pinball on the NES is genuinely one of the blandest pinball games I have ever seen in my life. It is functional, but there is it's only one table, and there is no really there's no interesting thematic through line. There's just a bunch of random objects, and I didn't feel like there was like any true satisfying flow playing it. You also only have one special minigame event. Most pinball video games have like a handful or a million minigame events that you can trigger to have like a bit of variety. This one has one minigame event, which has the obligatory Super Mario and I believe Pauline cameo, where you have a little save the
Yeah, yeah.
princess moment, but even that is not not very exciting. The weirdest thing is I feel, well, for one, you also don't have a tilt feature, which is I don't know, kind of a standard in pinball games, even early on. That kind of was annoying. But what's really weird about this is there's not even a high score list. I feel like even back then there should be an option for an high score list. Or I guess maybe were
Yeah, like
were there NES cartridges with batteries in them to save stuff like that, or was that
yeah, there was
completely
because
new
like the
system?
original Legend of Zelda, you have full of save files in the American
That
release
had,
at
yeah,
least.
right.
And
Yeah, so
even
there
if they didn't
was
spring for
And
that,
possibility.
Tetris definitely had a high score system, so
There
yeah.
you go.
Well, not
Yeah.
only that, like Ice Climber, which is also, I believe, a black box
Oh my
NES game,
God.
and some other ones have Now the thing is, it resets when you turn the game off, but it does have like high
Oh,
score on the like start of
yeah.
the like start screen. So pinball having none of that is indeed rather odd.
Yeah. I mean, pinball does save your highest score while it is still turned on. It's lost when you are turning it off because no
Uh,
battery. I guess they
well,
didn't want to pay the
that
extra
was
money.
what like other old high score games like
Right.
that did. I remember. Like I believe one thing, just real quick. Like they had to spend extra money on Legend of Zelda, and I believe the save
Yeah.
feature like that, or at least the save feature on a cartridge, is only in the American version, and the Japanese version has a password system.
Oh. Yeah, I could see
So
that.
since pinball's from '84, they might have just not even like developed battery cartridges yet. Honestly.
Yeah, yeah, you're probably right about that. So, okay, fair enough. There's an excuse, but really, a pinball game where there's nothing else to do but chasing high scores, but you don't have anything to compete with but yourself is kind of lame. Like there was no real
I love
goal here or
Sisyphus
whatever.
pinball.
Sorry,
I said I love Sisyphus pinball.
Sisyphus pinball. Right, the ball really do be rolling down again and again. Uh, um, shit. So I've played this pinball game for like a half an hour or whatever just to see what's up, and didn't find anything very exciting. So I was kind of done with it. But a couple people on the Discord joined me in a bit of a pinball high score hunt. Uh, Shout outs to R2D2 1999 who tried to compete but didn't really get a good score and pretty much left early on.
Tried to compete but didn't compare.
Yeah. Still respects for joining this community event. And big shout out to no one on the Discord who
Damn, he's
did
not shouting
put
out
up
anyone.
right, user no one who did get a decent score. So that actually made the game fun because now I had something to aim at and compete with. And after 2 more hours of gaming, I did beat no one's measly high score. Made that dude cry online, and that was my success story with pinball on NES. And I call it beaten because there's uh, obviously no actual win state. So putting a high score for me, that's beaten with these old arcade games, basically.
I do
And that
have this
is
game
for
to
now.
throw my high score in the ring.
Yeah, if you get a good score, then feel free to post it on the Discord. I'm down to do some more I'm down to keep my throne if I have to fight for it. But for now, I'm
What
on
we're
top.
saying is Matt's going to be interested in Pinball 99.
Yeah, I would be if somebody would figure out how to do that. I would be interested, although I would not be very good either.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all my beaten games. So now, Leah, you can take it away with your big ones.
Yeah, honestly, I would love to see like an online battle with 99 tables just shooting
Yeah.
pinballs all over the
That
place.
could be cool. Yeah.
I mean, Pinball 99
play
is like
that.
sick for pinball. Yeah, I would try that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can have like big arcade aesthetics in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Nintendo, if you're listening, everybody wants this. The hottest game of 2026.
Put it
Yeah.
in your next showcase.
Yeah.
Switch 2's hottest game is just Pinball 99.
Yeah. Yeah. So I finished. I still don't know how to pronounce this first game on my list because I thought it was Tsushima, and every video that I've watched since I've played it has pronounced it differently. So I'm not even sure. Like I've watched things on World War II and like things about Japan, and I'm like, nobody can pronounce this the same way. So I'm going to call it Tsushima for now, but I might be wrong. The internet may be wrong. Who knows? The
We're
whole
all
internet
wrong
is a
at the
lie
end.
at this point. So
Internet's never wrong. Yeah.
yeah. So finished this finally. I just only did the main story. I didn't go around, which was really rough for me because in this one kind of you can just like walk up to anybody and like I always in these sorts of games I always like run around the town and I want to like, speak to everybody, but everyone has a quest for you in this game. So like I couldn't do that because then everything was a side quest and I was like, "Oh, what do you have to say?" And they're like, "Can you get this one thing for me?" And I'm like, "I cannot. I'm leaving." And I would like run away.
I'm busy.
So like I didn't want to yeah, I was like I can't do this right now. So but a lot of
Anti-social
like
samurai simulator.
yeah. So but it was like I wanted to experience it, but I was just like I really just want to get through this main story and see how, you know. But it's so funny the way that this game is structured because this is basically just Red Dead 2 for people who don't like America. It is basically just Red Dead, all of the characters just shoved into ancient Japan. And, you know, but for some reason, I guess maybe because I started noticing it along the way where I was like, this person is just that person. This person is just that character. This is gonna happen to that character because that happened in Red Dead. And like very slowly everything started like coming together where I was just like, okay. So which is interesting because I do want to go back to Red Dead 2, which I had only done the main story, and I really want to get back to like the side stories as well. So I can 100% that because I think my dad has played Red Dead like twice over. So I was like, okay, you know more about this than I do, so I would like to get around to knowing like all the little side characters, side quests as well. So hopefully I can do that next year. But I didn't feel the need to do that with Ghost of Tsushima. Kind of like the main quest ended, and I was like, okay. I was like, I could do more stuff, but I don't really feel like I want to, even though like a lot of the smaller peasant stuff is cool. It's interesting to see the map because the way it's basically just a gang war because you've got like the Mongols are invading and you got the samurai, and you just look at the map and it's just like, you know, you have to liberate different areas. And I'm like, okay, like if this was GTA, this would just be like this gang has taken over this area, you know? So I was just like, I like how they took like all the little pieces from Rockstar games, like kind of just made it their own thing. But it's really nice. And what I really enjoyed was just like being soaked in the culture of Japan from that time period. Like I wish we had more games that did this. Like I know we have like Assassin's Creed sort of does like historical stuff, but I want more stuff like again, like even Red Dead, like there was a lot of stuff in there that I was like, I wasn't really thinking about this at that time in America, but okay, sure. You know, but just to have like little games that like will teach you more about like how people lived and like how things were at a certain time and like the culture of an area. Like I would like to see something like this, like based in India or somewhere in South Asia or like the Middle East or something like that. Like that sort of
Yeah.
cultural,
that'd be cool.
like soaked into a story would be really cool to see. So like I understand that we get a lot of these like samurai and ninja stories because most of the gaming comes from Japan. So like obviously they're gonna have that, kind of tied into, what their audience wants. But I guess, like we're starting to see a little bit more other areas start to like make smaller indie games about things, about their cultures and their experiences. So like maybe towards the future we'll get a little bit more about those in like bigger AAA games like this.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. But it was a good game. I would recommend it, and I'm very excited for the sequel. Even though I kind of wish that Yuna got her own game because I really liked Yuna a lot of all the little tag team friends that you got in this game. But yeah, worth your effort if you like these RPG sort of games. And the other one that I've beaten is Forspoken, which has been I don't know, unfairly and fairly accused of being like mediocre over time. I played the demo of this and I felt very overwhelmed when it first came out, just because like the section of the game that they throw you into, I was like, there's too many things happening for this to be a demo early on in the game, where it was just like, you got to do this now, this button does this button does that, now I have to learn how to do this, and I was like, bro, this is too many things for a demo. Like, I'm not going to remember this. Hopefully this comes like 3 hours into the game. What the hell is this? But I know a lot of people were talking about the writing, and the writing was, okay. But I think the situation for me is that I was playing Forspoken, sort of like one day I would play Forspoken, and then the next day I would play Infinity Nikki, and then the next day I would play Forspoken just to like get a little bit of variety in my gaming. Because Infinity Nikki has like zero combat whatsoever that's like challenging at all. It's basically like, oh no, there's like a Goomba, bop the Goomba on the head and you're done. Like that's the extent of the combat in Infinity Nikki. Like the scariest thing ever is going to be this little thing that's toddling at you and will like blow a bubble at you. That's it. So
holy crap! It might upgrade to a Koopa Troopa.
Yeah,
shit.
but like in Forspoken, there's like wolves and dragons and like all these things where it's like, oh, if you leave the town, there's going to be danger out there. So I was like, oh, okay, here's the combat that I wish was in Infinity Nikki. And I understand Infinity Nikki is a dress-up game, whatever, and I know that that's, their main thing is the fashion aspect of it. But Forspoken kind of has a little bit of that as well, where like, she has like different cloaks that you can get. You can like change her nails for like different spells and stuff, which is a little strange for like armory, I guess. But there's like necklaces you can find for her and stuff like that. But the writing was a little cringe, but compared to Infinity Nikki, which is not a type of game that I'm used to, where it's very like ooh kawaii, like everybody's so like gentle and nice to each other. Like I kind of liked Forspoken because she was one, a New Yorker, but also two, she was a little bit more rough around the edges as a girl, and I was like, okay, yes, this is the kind of like protagonist that I was looking for. I mean, not in maybe I wasn't going to get that in Infinity Nikki, but that's the kind of like protagonist that I like gravitate towards.
Right.
So it was nice to have that, even though like there was a few lines where I was like, she didn't need to say it like that, or like, certain things where I was just like, this was not the time for that kind of language, So there was a lot of little like, even like in combat, I was like, the magnitude of the combat right now did not fit what you just said. Like who decided that line was greenlit or whatever. And I feel like it could have benefited more from some more time and development just to like figure out the story a little bit more. because the
Yeah.
story is there, but there was a lot of loose ends that I feel didn't get tied up in the end. And there was a lot of things about her that they try to wrap up at the end and try to wrap up about the world at like the very end of the game. And I was like, you could have separated this out a little bit more, given me a little bit more to do. Like, again, I was only just doing the main story. And it just kind of was just like, well, there was like a whole chunk of like her intro that was never explained to my satisfaction. I guess they tried, but I didn't feel satisfied by it. And like they try to explain like certain things where I'm like, okay, but like you kind of just shoved it in this one section. And now I have like, instead of having 5 questions answered, I have 3 questions answered and 8 other questions that I have unanswered.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was that kind of like frustration where I was just like, this is a good world. I want to spend more time in this world than I do in Infinity Nikki. But there's nothing there, you know, beyond like the very basic quest that they've given you to do in the game. So like there wasn't a lot. Like I would have spent 40 hours plus in this game if there were like any reason for me to stick around. Like I even halfway through the game, I realized that there were 2 endings to this game. And I had it didn't seem like it was a game that was branching in any sort of way. And I was like, well, clearly I'm going to aim for this one ending because that's what I've been told so far is the ending that we're doing. And then it gets to, there's one section of the game where it changed and I went, oh, are we not? That's not what we're doing? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then I had to, suddenly I had to decide whether like which version of the game I was trying to play. And I was like, this was way late in the game for you to like give me this choice. So that was also strange because I was like, I feel like we should all be along on the same pathway throughout the entire game, and I had no idea. And then they try to do some like little twists in the story also, which like I saw coming, and I was like, okay, like you know, there were again gaps in the story where I was just like, there's nothing you've told me about this. I'm very confused. Like, where's that information? This must be, you know, like an M. Night Shyamalan twist coming or whatever.
Yeah.
So like, there was a lot of certain things that I was just like, I feel like, you know, if you're paying attention at any point to a story, if there's a lot of stuff in the story, you can probably forget a lot of things because like there's so much information that you're taking in. But when the story is so shallow, like you're gonna see like you're trying to like, they're trying to be like, oh, we have like certain twists and turns coming, but there's nothing to like distract me from that because you've never told me about this one thing that I'm waiting for it to happen. So if you're hiding it from me, they're hiding it for a reason. So it was kind of frustrating where I was like, you could have maybe, you know, fleshed out the story a little bit more, given it a little bit more depth and a little bit more stuff that would have been more intriguing. Which is unfortunate because they kind of set it up to be like a franchise. And from what I've heard, people did not care. So I don't think it's going to happen. But I would play another one, honestly, like hoping that, you know, that they would get a little bit more time with the next one and make it better. Because I have played games that, I mean, like Red Dead, again, like Red Dead 1 was great. Red Dead 2 was amazing. Grand Theft Auto, a few of my favorites are in the middle of the franchise. So it's like, you know, you could get better over time if they give them.
I will say that this game started production and was in production for like 4 to 5 years, depending on how you want to count pre-production.
Right.
So
regular AAA stuff.
Yeah. I think also that's also part of the problem. Like if it was an indie developer, I think it would have been given the weight that it deserved. And also another thing, for being a AAA game, the graphics, I don't mind the graphics being older looking or like being a little, like people were saying it was like PS3 graphics or whatever. But what took me out of it is that, I guess because it's a PS3 looking graphics game, the lip syncing was off. And so a lot of times people were talking and their lips were not connecting to what they were saying. And also their eyes were not focusing at each other. So it was very like, they're just staring off into the distance. I was like, this person is over here. What are you looking at over there? I don't understand. So that took me out. And I didn't realize that had been something that we had expanded past in graphics until like I've been playing like, you know, the older the GTA games, and I remember like all the blocky way people used to look, and remember thinking like seeing the GTA 4 and being like amazed at how like everybody looks so realistic or whatever. So then to play this game that only came out like last year or like 2 years ago, and to have that just be like, wow, this looks, you know, worse than GTA 4, which is I don't even remember when that came out. GTA 5 was like 2013 or something. So, you know, this game that came out in 2024 should not look that old or whatever. So it just feels like it was a huge injustice to what could have been a good series starter. If they, I mean, I don't know how well it did for them. Maybe they're still going to be like, we're going to try it again. This time we'll get it right.
Well, what happened with them is like obviously like they were a Square Enix studio, and basically the employees just kind of merged into, admittedly, one of the better Square Enix divisions, which is Unit 2. They're like the Octopath Traveler, Nier, Bravely Default people. So
it's by the Nier people? Or they got they got
absorbed into the Nier people.
To it. Oh, okay.
Like, so you know,
I mean, if the Nier people have this franchise now, maybe it can be better in the future.
Right, like if they ever decide to go back to it, admittedly an if, but like, I mean, you know, like it's not like the original Nier, for example, sold very well. Granted, the original Nier was a critical darling, but let's just ignore that part for a moment. But you know, maybe they gain absorbed into that. They get some, you know, more seasoned talent around them because they were a new studio kind of thing. They just worked on Final Fantasy 15. That was the only thing they'd worked on. And who knows, maybe they get a second shot at it.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just one of those things where, like, I remember why I have moved on from AAA gaming, where it's like, this game looks like it's going to be great. And then it's like, okay, instead, I'm going to go play all these other indie games and, like, mobile games and Switch games that are, like, 100 times more, you know, fun and have more care and passion poured into it.
I will say, this is my opinion. I said this in the Fantasy Critic. Like, I kind of thought it was really obvious Forspoken was going to be a bomb just from the trailers because the trailers weren't good.
No.
So I counterpicked it in Fantasy Critically. So
and you know who was the guy who picked it?
Yeah. All right, it was you, wasn't it? Well,
it's actually funny.
Matt and I had high hopes.
Yeah, Forspoken was like the first AAA RPG whatever game that I was actually excited for in maybe a decade or whatever. So when that bombed as it did, that was like shit. Leah, you saying that this was like your reminder of why you are not playing AAA anymore? That's like, fuck, I thought this could be my in or something.
I mean, I feel like there are a lot of really good AAA games. It's just Forspoken really obviously wasn't it. And I mean, they were like the Final Fantasy 15 people, and Final Fantasy 15's, you know, in my opinion, one of the worst Final Fantasy. Kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm not a Final Fantasy person, so
me neither.
I wouldn't know. We would have to defer to somebody else in the Discord for that. But But yeah, I mean, I didn't hate it as much as. Oh, and the other thing is that in the credits they mention Black Girl Gamers, which is like amazing to me because I don't think I've ever seen a game and even like a trip. Well, I guess maybe Miles Morales may have mentioned them as well at some point. But like, it's so interesting that they probably had some input into this game, even if it was like in the playtesting phase or whatever, just because
They
like
were
again. Oh no, there's because Black Girl Gamers to me it started as like a Twitch guild, Twitch team or whatever. So it's just interesting to see, you know, the audience that was hoping for this game to give them, you know, like a new franchise that they could look forward to or whatever, you know. Because I know when the Spider-Man Miles Morales came out too, there was a whole little an audience that was very excited to have like another Black game for them to champion. So to not get that from Forspoken now is also another thing that like as I was watching the credits, I was like, man, I was like, what we could have had, you know, like I'm sure they're you know, not only was it like a female protagonist, but it was also, you know, a woman of color. So to not now have that as a franchise, you know, in the future, be like, man, I want this. I'm gonna root for you anyway, even though. Also, I didn't realize it was written by Todd Stashwick, which I only know as an actor. So that was
he is
interesting.
one of the writers.
That he's so it's very interesting that like I saw his name in the credits and I was like, top like guy from TV, okay, sure.
Yeah.
But yeah,
he wrote the Kim Possible movie. That's dope.
Yeah.
I didn't even know there was a Kim Possible movie.
A live action
one. Movie?
A live action Kim Possible movie?
One. I thought you meant the original.
No.
2019.
Damn.
Look it up.
I knew there was a live action one, but I was still when I hear Kim Possible movie, I think of the original.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, he didn't write it, but he was somehow involved, just to clarify. Sorry.
So I was gonna say is I guess according to them, they specifically consulted Forspoken with the characterization and stuff of Frey, the main character.
Yeah.
That was their
okay.
Apparently.
Yeah, I feel like that was very. It was a little helpful. I mean, there were certain things about her life in New York City that I was like, no, first of all, like the streets that she's on don't look like that. So it was funny to me, just like I was just like, oh, let me see what avenue are we supposed to be on, and I was like, that's not true. I was like, this is at least 2 avenues over from where you think you're supposed to be, but okay. But yeah, there's certain things also like with her apartment. Her apartment was super cute too. I was like, I want this apartment. Like I just sat around in her apartment for a while. Take the cat out and perfect apartment for me, honestly. But yeah, I might go back to like all the side stuff eventually, just because like the parkour system and like the magic system, like I've never wanted to go back. I hate skill trees. Anytime that they make me do a skill tree, I'm going to try my darndest to go through and like level everything out. Like I just want everything open all the time. But this one I was like, no, we're gonna specialize because this is how I play and this is what we're gonna do, and you know, figure out like, oh, this is the kind of magic that I use more or whatever. And like the parkour system where she's just like running like the Flash or whatever was like so fun to like travel around. The days that I was playing Infinity Nikki, I would get into the game and I was like, okay, now we run, and she just has like a short like speed dash and then stops, and I was like, but I want the parkour back.
You can't run in high heels.
Yeah, well, I guess not. Apparently you can
fantasy
float.
World.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was, I mean, if they can just take that parkour thing and put it in other games where like, I don't have to. I was worried that it was going to be tied to like a I mean, it is kind of tied to a stamina bar, but it replenishes so fast that it's not like I was expecting to be like, you only have like 500 mana and you have to like fill it up before you can use it again. And I would have to like find some currency or something, but it's just like a little stamina bar that refills, you know, the moment you stop, it immediately refills. It's like, oh, I am going to go forever with this. That was the most enjoyable part, honestly. Like, there were times where it was like fast travel. It was like, or I can run there, and I would just like run across the plains of this world. So that was there were parts. Honestly, there were parts that I enjoyed about it, and I wish I'm more upset that it wasn't well received and it wasn't given the care that it could have had than I am about what it ended up as. So I would still recommend, like, it's a short game if you're only doing the main thing. I think it was only like 21 hours or something like that. So like if you can find it for cheap, play it. I think I got it for like $10 or $15 when I bought it for GameFly.
All right.
So yeah.
Yeah, wasn't
Anyway,
the
that's
original price like $70 or whatever? That's
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
it was
Yeah.
very AAA, but that was the one thing I can say about. Yeah, I think that was the one thing about the fact that it was so poorly received early on that the price just went down immediately, and I was like, cool, I can buy it now.
That's true.
So, like, that was the only good thing about that. And I was just like, I was like, I'm gonna wait until this gets to 30, and it was like 15, and I was like, that's even better. Okay.
For sale.
Yeah.
I mean, Leah, you could just like segue into your retired and pause games.
Oh, that's true.
Since Diallo and Roy did not retire anything.
That's right.
I don't
Although
retire.
I will say, I very rarely do as well.
This is relatively short. I was playing Fashion League and Influencer Story on mobile, but I guess Diallo's curse has followed me into this game because the other day I opened both of these and my all of my gameplay had been erased, and it was like, start your character, and I was like, no.
Oh no.
And I was like,
where
did it go? And I was like, oh, so maybe like I thought it was like maybe like a Google Play Games that I had to like sign in, but I signed in and then it was like, okay, recreate your character. And I was like, no. So I logged out again and tried it, and I was like, okay, like refresh everything, do it again. Nothing. And I was like, well, uninstall both of these because I didn't play very often, but I think I was like maybe like level or something. I had some good clothes in either of them, and I was like, all right, well, I know in Fashion League was like, I don't think I even mentioned Fashion League last time, but it was basically just like, it looks like it has the assets from whatever that dodgeball game that everybody was playing a few years ago.
What?
But it's very like stylistically 3D. Yeah, there was. Let me see if I can find it. My birds are fighting.
I appreciate that both me and Matt were just like, what game is this?
I'm not in the dodgeball circle, apparently.
Me either.
Knockout City.
Every miss a banger dodgeball. Knockout City.
Knockout City?
Yeah.
I don't even know if that name is a good bell for me.
No, it isn't for me.
Yeah, it was basically like a live service dodgeball game where you had like.
Oh, Dodgeball Fortnite.
Yeah, essentially.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm gonna dodge that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's offline at this point. But like basically, Fashion League looked like it had like their character, their 3 characters stylized or whatever. But it was basically just Influencer Story, but like more fashion and less story. But
Good.
but also like the loading screens look like it was AI, so it probably just like rebooted itself without even really having to do anything on my end. But Influencer Story, I don't know what happened with my progress there. But that one I wasn't. I think I was like maybe 7 chapters into whatever, like 25 chapters or whatever. So it wasn't a total loss, but I was like, well, okay, more time for me to play Infinity Nikki on mobile. So that's what I was
Exactly.
mostly focusing on. So, yeah, those were basically accidental retires, I guess. I didn't mean to retire them, but they decided to retire themselves. They were self-retired.
There were the suicidal retires.
Yeah, they
Jesus
retired me
Christ.
is what happened.
Right, they gave up on you. All right. Well, I got some more that I retired. A couple. where to start. I guess let's keep with the pinball bullshit. I'm not done with my pinball stuff yet because there's one more title here.
Never done.
There's a third pinball game that I have played on the cursed weekends, but this one I did not beat in any way. This is I think the return of the Little Mermaid 2 Pinball Frenzy on Game Boy Color. I'm
That's
pretty
right.
sure this got previous mentions. Yeah.
It did.
Uh,
Multiple times, in fact.
yeah. This is obviously a pinball spin-off game based on a straight to VHS sequel for a Disney movie, so it's quality all around. And yeah, after playing the amazing Pinball of the Dead and being like reinvigorated or whatever the word is, with the genre, like really getting into it again, I was feeling giving this one another shot. I think I called this one as well, like bland and unforgettable back in the day
Yeah.
when this early on the podcast. Wanted to give it a second try, and like props where it's due. This is a pinball game with 2 tables again, and this one has a big amount of mini game events that you can unlock on these 2 tables. I think there's close to 20 mini game events, all of which, once you have triggered them on the table, you can just play them from the main menu. And for me, I was originally going into this with the goal of unlocking every minigame, taking this as the like beating requirement if I wanted to beat this. But I think I've put 2 to 4 hours, something in between that. I put into this game. Mostly only on the first of the 2 table as well, trying to unlock those mini games, but it's just not fun. I think I ultimately got 5 of the mini games unlocked, which is like I'm pretty sure there's like 20 or so to get, so I wasn't even halfway there. Uh, I don't think the pinball tables have a very satisfying flow. There's some awkward flipper placement, but I think what aggravates me the most with this is it's a very, very common feature, a very, very common element on pinball tables where you have ladders on the table that light up if you
Right.
hit its corresponding button, that sort of thing. And many of the events get triggered once you light up every letter of a word on the table. Very,
Right.
very basic, very, very regular thing. The thing is that this stupid table is doing is that the already lit up lights, they don't stay where they are. Each time you move a flipper, the lights move one to the right or one to the left. And theoretically, you could use that, as some sort of strategic thing. If one of the ladders is easier for you to hit, you could move the lights so that you will only have to hit the easy button instead of having to actually hit all the individual buttons or whatever. Theoretically, there's this strategy or whatever, but I can't think that quick. I'm trying to control the ball with the flippers, and the lights keep moving back and forth and whatever, and I cannot focus on one goal because it keeps like switching here and there. Uh, it was so aggravating. It's like one
Sensory
small
overload.
feature. Yeah, it's like one small feature on this table that made this go from a mediocre fine to this is too much of a chore to actually get these events going. That's what ultimately broke this for me. I did not feel like grinding this one out, and so the Little Mermaid 2 Pinball Frenzy went again straight into the retired bin. And I think for now, it's
Most
not
likely.
great. Yeah.
I, if I may, I do want to ask something that isn't directly related to this game, but this game, another title you have retired, made me think of, because I was talking about this with some friends. This won't take long, don't worry. But
Okay.
when you're organizing your games, if you organize them alphabetically, do you put a game with "the" in the title with the T's, or with the letter like of the word? Like, would The Little Mermaid 2 go into L's or T's?
It goes into L.
Ls.
The and A and whatever is not counted in.
Yeah, articles don't
That's like
count.
library rules. Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn, alright. I'm
Do
in the
you count
minority. I put
the?
mine in T's.
That's
Alright.
crazy. But then you have like a million these in your list.
Yeah. What bothers me is when I'm alphabetizing stuff is numbers, because I don't know if numbers should go before or after or am I going by
Before.
how it would be spelled if you're writing out the word?
I
That
always
always
go
bothers
before.
me.
Actually, this is actually a good point. One of the pinball games I think it was Pinball of the Dead. When you get a high score and get your name on the score list and you have your 3 letters to put in there, you have to scroll through the entire alphabet, obviously. And this one also has the numbers before ABC. But you start between Z and number 1. So either you have to go through the entire alphabet from Z backwards to get to your letter, or you have to first go through all numbers and then get to the beginning of the alphabet. And it's just a little tidbit, but that just felt like the weirdest point to start your letter selection from. Maybe this doesn't make sense to anybody.
No.
but-
Yeah, that feels like intentionally painful design choices.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's
Yeah.
what it felt like.
That
That
always
was really
bothers me. Like
strange.
I start immediately scrolling, and like
Yeah.
once I see where how the sorting is, I'm like, man, you're gonna make me do this, go all through all of these,
Yeah.
especially sometimes if they also have like the symbols at the end also. Well, like I start seeing
Right.
commas and exclamations. I'm like, no, we're not doing this. Who has this in their name?
Yeah,
Get
yeah,
out of here. Give me the letters.
All right. So much
Sorry about
for
that detour,
the
but-
alphabet. I got 2 more games that I retired. One of them is called Headache, which is originally an itch.io release by a developer called Meltpack. This apparently was sold for a couple bucks on Steam at some point, but I think the developer eventually retracted it, and it's now like given out for free on itch, not as a finished game, but more as a concept. Headache is a Hotline Miami inspired first person shooter. Hotline Miami, for those who don't know, was a very, very frantic shooter with a bird's eye view. I never played those and I never intend to play those, but putting it into a first person perspective, which I can deal with better, but still having very, very striking visuals with bright yellow colors and smiley faces and whatever, like a really, really cool aesthetic, which is Hotline Miami inspired from all I know. I was kind of down to play this Headache thing, trying to get through a very arcadey, fast-paced shooter where you not just use weapons to shoot, but you also throw objects. You can kick people. You are all the weapons that you pick up are from your enemies and with very limited ammunition amount and whatever. So it's very much you have to be thinking quickly what resources you got around you and reacting to all sorts of things. Seems like a very well made, like small little hobbyist dev game. As well aesthetically well made, as well as like from the gameplay. It felt very smooth and whatever. But I think I'm just too old. I was not able to get through these levels very well. I was stuck on like the first level, or not stuck, but I had to retry the first level so many times to even get through it once, having to clear a building from all the NPCs lurking around. I kind of enjoyed it, but I realized very clearly that this was not my kind of game, and I'm just not equipped for this. So this is a retirement. For me, but still like a recommendation for those who like these quirky, fast-paced first-person shooters. I have recommended this to people on Discord, and they did like it.
Makes sense.
But yeah, for me, not my deal, unfortunately.
I know a friend of mine who likes Cruelty Squad. I wouldn't be surprised if they'd enjoy something like this.
Yeah, it's very much like that sort of terrain. It's much lighter on the weirdness, but it's like somewhere in that alleyway for sure. And the third game that I've retired is a little thing called The Amazing Spider-Man on Game Boy. We did mention Miles Morales earlier, which is a good one. This, however, is not a good Spider-Man.
Oh no, it isn't.
To be fair, there are a lot more terrible Spider-Man games than there are good ones. So
And there are amazing ones.
It's wild how many Spider-Man games there are in general. When I tried, like, I streamed this on Twitch, was trying to get the games category in or whatever, but putting in The Amazing Spider-Man in there, you get a million different things.
Yes.
Just a mess. And I guess this one is rightfully forgotten anyway. The Amazing Spider-Man is a game that I only picked up again because this is like a nostalgic childhood thing. A close childhood friend back in the day had this on his Game Boy, and I remember picking it up quite often, but really only because it was one of the things we had around, not because I thought it was good. And
Right.
revisiting this now was more a thing of like, was it really that bad? I could never beat it as a kid. Was it because I was stupid, or is it actually just a bad game and adult me couldn't get through it either? That was the
Well,
question. And I did make it further than my child self. I still didn't beat it, and it's also not fun enough for me to like try again with save states or whatever. I just I feel like the graphics are good. They probably had the budget for making it seem appealing like with all the marketing and whatever. It looks fine. I even like the music, but the gameplay is just so slow and clunky, which I guess especially for Spider-Man is very much not what you want. It's a very, very clunky, big sprite 2D platformer with lots of fighting. It just doesn't work for me at all. This goes into the pile of like I have a really serious gripe with 2D platformers that use big sprites for their characters. I always feel like that's just such a bad decision. You want something that moves quick and fast, and that's usually a small, simple sprite, and not a big one where you want to show off the animation or whatever and the details on the character. It always backfires, in my opinion, and this one is, I feel like, one of those cases.
I feel like
It's just
particularly
not a
on the
good game.
Game Boy, which is, a
Yeah,
super
yeah,
small screen.
definitely. Yeah, you don't have
So,
the real estate, and then you're trying to fill it up. Ugh.
you want to know
Bad
why you
idea.
probably like the music?
I wanna know.
Okay,
Is there a
so
reason?
I don't know if you know this. This game was developed by Rare, and the music is done by David Wise, who's the Donkey Kong Country guy.
There you go. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Jesus
And
Christ.
I know this because I actually have beaten this game.
You
With
have
like,
beaten
I
this
had like one life left at the end, so it was close. It was about as close
without
as you could.
save states.
I
Or did you use save
believe
states?
I didn't. I never save stayed in the middle of a level. I think I may have save stayed
Right,
between levels. I don't think I ever loaded one. But honestly, I will say it's
right.
been about 2 or 3 years since I beat it, so maybe I did. But
I think,
I just want to add this game is fucking awful.
yeah, thanks for the confirmation. It sucks.
Like this is another game worse than Drake of the 99 Dragons.
Probably, yeah.
The web swinging is so weird in this game. It felt so
Yeah.
awkward to do.
I never really understood how to trigger it or whatever. Nothing made sense, honestly.
Yeah. Like, probably the only thing about this game that I would say is at least okay is, like, the cutscene between Spider-Man and the villains, where each level is, like, cute for a 1990 Game Boy game.
Right.
That's about it. This game also
Yeah.
has 2 sequels, which were done by completely different studios, and I've heard maybe even worse. I've wanted to play them for a while because they're all, like, under an hour.
Jesus Christ. I think
So
I'm gonna pass on
maybe I'll
that.
do that. You want the trilogy?
Nah, dog. Nah.
Yeah.
Well, that's gonna be it. That's all my retired games, and I guess that again, Diallo and Roy haven't retired anything. They've been good
Right.
boys. so
I
so we are, I guess, going straight into playing, and
it's possible.
I'm gonna
I just want to say
say,
one thing.
yeah.
Sorry, I just want to say one thing very quickly. It's possible next month I might have something retired because while I end up getting one more month of Game Pass, it's gonna be my last one. So anything I don't own, I don't finish. That will technically be
Right.
retired.
And now we're going into playing, and I will say Diallo should talk. Finally.
Alrighty, I've been
I've been
activated.
working
So
in the background.
as you probably gleaned, I have not beaten or retired any games this time around. I haven't had that much gaming time between the last recording. So the one game that I've been able to play is Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time, which I have been loving so far. So I'm going to talk a bit about, I guess, sort of like the original Fantasy Life and Fantasy Life series as a whole before talking about what's new for this iteration of the game and why I've been enjoying it so much. Basically, the original Fantasy Life on the 3DS was one of my favorite games of all time. This easily could have been one of, in fact, in retrospect, probably should have been one of the games that I put as one of the games to represent me in episode 1 because it
Oh.
just, I found it so, it's such a Diallo game. I love it so much. The best way I can describe it is that it's kind of like an MMO that can be enjoyed as a single player experience. So in the original game, you had 12 different classes, which are all referred to as lives in this game. Then they fall into 3 different categories. So you have gathering lives, which are your woodcutter, your miner, your angler. You've got crafting lives, so you could be a tailor, a blacksmith, an alchemist, a cook. I might be forgetting some. And then you also have combat lives, so you can be like a mercenary, a paladin, a hunter, or a wizard. And it's kind of like one of those old school MMOs where the more that you perform an action as like a life, you are able to increase your skills in said life. So if you're, chopping down trees and stuff, you'll be able to increase your wood cutting life's ability. And you have a whole skill tree for each different life where you can unlock different abilities and power ups and stuff, etc. for each one as you're progressing through it. And I think one of the things that's beautiful about the original game is that you can delve into as much depth or as little as you want to. So for example, if you want to just play a single life, if you're like, I just want to be a blacksmith in this game, like that's all I'm here for, you could do that. You could play through the entire game as just like that one life. And in the original game too, if you chose a non-combat life, for example, and you got to some certain points in the story where there was like a pre-scripted combat section, they gave you the option to just sort of like, they'll be like, oh, do you want to skip this? And you can hit yes, and then it'll just sort of auto-complete the combat for you. So they really gave you the freedom to just like do a single life. But you could also sort of mix and match and play multiple lives. And I think that's another part that's kind of beautiful about this gameplay loop is the way that all the different lives tie together. So for example, let's say that you want to be a paladin, right? To get like the best armor and weapons that you want to use as a paladin, it's beneficial to invest some points into like your blacksmith life so you can, forge better armor, forge better weapons and stuff. And then to get better materials to blacksmith with, it's beneficial to invest in the miner life so you can like gather the good materials that you need and everything. And then if you want to get the really good materials, you might want to invest in a combat life so you can like go to the dungeons that have all the best materials and such. And so the way that like, everything you do feels rewarding. Like as you progress in one life, you're able to sort of like make progress in other lives. Symbiotic relationship that's very, very addictive, and everything that you do ends up feeling rewarding. It's a game, I think it's technically marketed towards kids, so I think it's a very G-rated game is how I would describe it. Nothing gets like too dark or silly. The story kind of like cheesy. I remember the NPCs yapped a lot, but the writing's like, very cutesy and funny. It has a lot of witty moments. It's sanitized enough that it can be enjoyed. It's marketable towards kids, but it's also has enough depth to be enjoyable by adults as well. So it's got that good little balance of like, it's family friendly, it appeals to all age groups, I think, is a good way to describe it. Also, the presentation's like very cute. The characters are adorable. There is shiny poop in the game. It's true. And the music is also really good. And I don't know if I had forgotten this or just didn't know previously, but one of the composers is Nobuo Uematsu of Final Fantasy fame. So the soundtrack is a banger and a half. Yeah, I really enjoyed the original 3DS game. And it felt like a bit of a hidden gem to me because like I didn't really know very many people who had played that game. So it's really exciting for me to see that the sequel is getting so much more attention. Okay, so what's new in this iteration of Fantasy Life is that they introduced 2 new lives. You've got a farmer life and an artist life. They are not unlocked from the beginning. You have to unlock them throughout the course of the story. But that it adds some new exciting classes to play around with. And they've taken a lot of inspiration from Animal Crossing New Horizons this time around, it seems. So there's a whole island management aspect that they've added to the game. You have this like little base island where you can recruit NPCs, you can like build houses for them, you can decorate the whole island. There's terraforming. You can even get like an island rating, and if your island has a high enough rating, like these special flowers will grow on the island. So it really reminds me of Animal Crossing New Horizons in that sense. You've also got these sort of daily quests now that are constantly replenishing as you complete them, that are very similar to the Nook Miles daily quests that you get in Animal Crossing New Horizons. So they definitely took a lot of inspiration from that. As the title suggests, there's a whole time travel plot involved in this game. The girl who steals time, you're traveling between like the past and the present this time around. The map is huge. I feel like it's gotten sort of the Tears of the Kingdom treatment. Like if Fantasy Life Original is Breath of the Wild, and this game feels like the Tears of the Kingdom version. It's an absolutely ginormous map. In fact, the continent is called Ginormosa, one of the continents you can get to.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. There is online multiplayer this time around. Apparently, there was multiplayer for the 3DS game as well, but I didn't know anyone who had the game, so I didn't get to experience the multiplayer for that one. And I feel like just like playing like on PC or on modern platforms is a bit easier to have like a multiplayer experience than playing games on the 3DS. I've been playing this on Steam Deck because I feel like it's this perfect sort of like pick up and play game. Just like, pick up, play for like a couple minutes, knock out a couple quests for like your side quests for NPCs, or like work on some quests for your life, chop down some trees, do level ups, and then put it down again. I've been having a lot of fun with it. Like I mentioned, the original. I should have mentioned this in the episode that we were talking about the games that we were most anticipating for 2025, but I forgot to mention that at the time. But I've been, ever since I played the original ever since I played the original Fantasy Life, which was back in like, I think 2015ish for me, I've been searching for a game that would scratch the same sort of itch, and I haven't really encountered a game that sort of like hits the same way that I keep saying Final Fantasy, that hits the same way that Fantasy Life does. So when they announced the sequel, I was through the roof ecstatic with it, and so far it has not disappointed. I'm about 15, 20 hours in at this point. I'm at the point in the story where I've just unlocked the second of the new unlockable lives. So still pretty early on. It still feels like I'm in the tutorial, kind of. So excited to sink dozens and dozens more hours into this. And if anyone gets the game and wants to play, hit me up, because I will be fantasy lifing.
Well, I posted this already in the chat, but for the listeners, there is a moment in the Steam Store trailer where it states in big bold letters, "Discover mysterious shrines," and the character says, "A shiny poop." It really does exist. Looking at like a temple building that looks vaguely like a poop, and I mean, this does sound like my kind of deal. But I don't think that's worth it. $60 for me. So sadly, I think I have to decline your offer.
You can always wait until it's on sale.
Yeah, hopefully it'll go on sale soon, because the price is, when I try to convince people to play with me, the price has been the biggest deterrent so far. So hopefully either there'll be a sale soon. But if you're on the fence, if you're like, is this game worth $60 or not? I definitely personally think it's worth the $60. But again, I understand if that's like, too pricey for people. Hopefully a sale comes soon.
It depends on how many poops there are.
Yeah, well, you gotta get the poop counter. But
It will not rival the Koroks, whatever it is.
no, it won't. That's for sure. We heard 900 fucking nuts last time. Now we got 900 fucking poops. Jesus. But
Let's go.
I had actually heard really good things about this game when it released, like because it released really recently, right?
About 2 weeks ago now.
Yeah, all right, that's right.
So I guess at the time of that you listen to the episode, it'll have been out for about a month and a half. I guess
May
depending on when you listen to the
21st.
episode, maybe you're listening to the episode in 2028, in which case it'll be out for a long, long time.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
That's true. Or maybe they're a time traveler listening to the past and they haven't even come out yet.
Oh.
But I remember I feel like people were a bit skeptical when this game was like first revealed. But when it actually came out, I feel like reviews have been really, really good, so I've been interested. And hearing you talk about it a lot and kind of giving me an idea of what it's like does make me interested. Because I do have the original like in my backlog.
that's another good caveat. Because if you have been sitting on the original for a while and you don't want to drop the money on the new game, or if you could like find the original, for cheap, that could be a cheaper sort of entry point to test the waters and see if it's your kind of game and get a feel for if
Yeah,
you want
that's
to
true.
invest for the Fantasy Life I.
For me, like, I'd probably invest if I had the money, I just can't actually afford it. Kind of thing. A lot of times that's what it comes down to. But who knows? Maybe whenever I get my Switch 2, this will be one I keep in mind, because there's like a Switch 2 version.
Who has money for that?
I will say I am getting more tempted to buy a Switch 2, but we'll see what happens. Tune into
Oh,
next episode to
gosh.
find out if I get one.
Who would be the first here?
I would love if I get enough of a job I could afford one by Christmas or something.
Right,
But
yeah.
that seems unlikely. I can go next because my list won't
Yeah.
take very long to get through, I don't think.
Yeah, that's my only
Wordle
game.
update, Wordle update.
Wordle update. My streak is still alive. 736. And while the podcast was on, I got it in 4.
Oh, damn.
So I've been doing it in the background here and there. So the Wordle streak continues. One game
Thank
on
goodness.
here I played, but I can't really say too much about is Starvaders. It's a roguelike game and I've only done one run, so I can't say that much about it. It was gifted to me by a friend who recommended it. It's like kind of a card roguelike. I don't know if I'd say tower defense. Anyone here has played Battle Network? Like Mega Man Battle Network, that kind of.
No.
It's like
No.
grid-based game. You're on one side, enemies are on the other, and like you move left. In this case, left and right. In Mega Man, you technically move up and down, but like to aim, you have to move to different parts of the grid, and you can shoot in a line, you can shoot diagonal, whatever. And in this game, you're basically just trying to keep the enemies from going to the bottom, kind of like a tower defense game, basically. So card-based roguelike tower defense, I guess is how I put the genre. Very cute art, not cute, maybe very nice art style, well animated. I don't know how I would describe it. Very, very colorful. I'd say that it's very much a game, going for that, like a bit over the top, kind of classic animated mecha kind of look. I actually beat it on my first run as far as I could go, but you have to unlock like an extra boss. But I think unlocking like all the characters or something. It seemed fun by the one run I played it, but it was just one run, so I can't say much. And Matt, I have to ask, did you pull up Wordle after I said I got it?
I did, and I got it in 4 as well.
Nice, let's go. I'll share mine in a little moment.
Oh boy.
Wordle live on stream, fellas.
Yeah.
That'll be a fun New Game Plus episode. We just play Wordle live.
Play word.
Yeah.
It's our new Wordle segment. One of the other games I've been playing is Mario Party 3, which, if people remember an earlier episode, I said is one of my favorite Mario games. So me and two friends, one who has never played a single Mario Party, another one who also has played a lot of Mario Parties. We've just kind of been gamed together I don't know, around once a week to once every 2 weeks, I suppose, something like that. I only just been playing a game of Mario Party, and it's really fun still. All kind of nonsense can happen. There's some goofiness because since there's only 3 of us, we always pick hard Donkey Kong to try to mess with us. And he actually won the first game. He lost to the computer first try.
How
Um,
embarrassing.
it is. I blame chance time. There was like 3 chance times in that game.
Sure.
And then the second time we played, like in the first 10 turns, there was like 8 or 10 battle games, and just the entire economy was swinging left and right like every time. But it's really fun. I still think this is one of the best Mario games. This is still one of the best Mario parties, although I have not tried enough Mario parties. I'm gonna be definitive about saying it's the best. But classic board game nonsense. Good combination of skill with a little luck to keep things all bounced around. The boards are good. We're doing the Chili Waters board right now. But we've done what was it? We've done the tree one that I just suddenly can't remember the name of. Now that's my time to say it. And we did the underwater one. Right now, with 10 turns to go in our last game, I am in the lead by 2 stars. Hopefully I can keep that up. And then it'll be just about tied with everyone over the course of our games. But there you go. There's the Mario Party update. Also, I'm really hoping to add the GameCube Mario parties to the Switch 2 NSL library, because those will be fun to go back to as well. But the final game, which is what I'm definitely going to be completing in June before my Game Pass runs out, is Claire Obscure Expedition 33, which I had started last month but didn't get all that far into. I'm about 7 or 8 hours into it now, I want to say, which, since this isn't a super long RPG, is actually, a reasonable amount through, but, still early kind of thing. This game still feels really good. The combat is extremely fun and feels like, I feel like the best way I can put it is, how like a lot of turn-based RPGs kind of went action RPG, like Final Fantasy? It almost feels like the opposite. Like somebody was compressing an action RPG into a turn-based RPG, and like thinking about how the mechanics would work from that, which ends up feeling like kind of a high-octane Paper Mario Legend of Dragoon kind of energy. At this point, I have 3 party members. One thing I immediately like, all the party members have very different mechanical identities and very different play styles. It's immediately like, there's ways that they synergize, but instantly it's very clear that they all have not different rules even, but just even their pattern of play. Like, one of them is basically the Watcher from Slay the Spire, where you're doing a lot of stance switching, and if you don't switch your stance, you just lose at the end of the turn, kind of thing. So how you line that up is critical for what kind of abilities you're using. And then, like, the main character is more like, as you attack and use skills, you charge up to big attack, or you can use the charges for utility, kind of thing. Completely different kind of mechanical identities. The story hasn't gone too far going, but it has been good. I have a theory or two about where the story's going. But funny enough, I did mention one to a friend, and they asked if I want a spoiler, so I know one of my theories is untrue. Also, I was happy that, there's an NPC in this game who so far seems completely helpful, but they just made him look really creepy as shit. Like, he doesn't have a face, and he floats, and he has, like, skin and stuff. He's like a smaller version of, like, one of the Dark Souls 2 giants or something. It's hilarious that he's just, like, a friendly dude who basically seems like he runs a library.
Well, you shouldn't judge based on cover and stuff, no?
That's true, just like a book. And I just love when games give guys like wild appearances, even if they're completely friendly kind of thing. Like, give it to me. Give me the friendly
We
Goomba.
love freaks in games. Hell yeah.
It's true. We're always getting freaky. But game seems really good. I'll probably have more definitive to say next time, kind of thing, because I feel like I haven't gone far enough. I think I only have like half the party members, kind of thing. But I've been really enjoying myself. If it does keep up its quality, could definitely end up being like game of the year material for me for like games that released this year, not games I've played this year, because I think Persona 3 Reload's going to be nearly impossible to beat in that regard. But yeah, really enjoying myself.
I've got a quick note / plea for help about this game before we move on. Is that so? I mentioned last time that I also have Game Pass, and I was hoping to play this game before this week's recording. This episode's recording. Unfortunately, so I tried to play it on Game Pass, but I wasn't able to get it to work with either my Nintendo Switch Pro controller or my DualShock. So
Oh,
it's just not playing
oh,
nice with either of those, unfortunately. So if
I
someone
might
in the audience knows,
I might even be able to help you because I had to finagle using a Switch Pro controller. So if you want to talk about it after the podcast so that we don't delay it, I could try and help you with that.
yeah, because if I'm not able to get those working, I'll have to either like wait for a sale or something, or I might just like
Yeah.
buy it. But yeah, but that's what's been stopping me from playing it so far. I was like, okay, the controllers aren't working great so far, and I have a bunch of others for my plate right now, so I'll postpone it for now. But once I get it working, I really want to check out this game.
Anyway, that was the last game that I had.
Right, yeah. I could continue mine out really quick. I don't have much to say. It's nothing new here either. I'm still playing Need for Speed Pro Street. Technically, well, right now everything is on pause because my PC died. But technically, I'm still playing Need for Speed Pro Street, which is still a racing game that I'm enjoying. And I'm also technically, well, this was the last game that I've played before my PC died. I've played another round of Helldivers, the co-op horror game with my friend, as well as a round of the classic board game Mills in the aforementioned collection called Backgammon plus Checkers plus Mills, as we do every Friday night, basically. Nothing new to say, still the basics in my gaming life right now, and I hope to return to them once I have a functioning computer again. That's pretty much it from me.
R.I.P. to Matt's computer.
Yeah.
Yeah, alright. It couldn't handle Mills.
It couldn't. Yeah, I lost 2 bad at Mills last Friday, so that was probably it.
You couldn't handle the
That was your
shame.
punishment.
Yeah.
All right. Well, actually, that segues perfectly into one of my games because I've been playing Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered with my boyfriend because this was one of the very few games that he actually wanted to play. Like 4 games since I've known him that he's like, can we buy that game? I want that one. So we started playing this one, and one of the mini games in there is Mills. So we spent one night.
It's funny.
It's so interesting because my dad has mentioned before that he couldn't get through the first Red Dead because he got stuck playing a poker game for like 3 hours. And then he was like, I'm not even actually playing the game. I'm playing a game inside the game. I don't understand. And I was like, I don't think I've ever had that happen. And in Red Dead 2, there's like a dominoes, and I got stuck playing dominoes. And now here's my boyfriend's version of that, where like we played Mills the first night, and he lost like 200 of the play money in the game. And he was like, I don't understand this. And he downloaded it on his phone, and he was like, I'm gonna learn this. And the next day he was like, I'm going to win at Mills. And so he was like trying to get through that one. We've played like 1 chapter of the game so far, but like our main quest now is winning in Mills so we can have money
That's
to do
funny.
other things in the game.
That's amazing.
There's actually
Yeah.
gamer guides just how to win 9 Men's Morris or Mills in Assassin's Creed 3. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
So and that has kind of sidetracked our gaming in that. But so far, the actual game, I played half of the first one and really couldn't get into Assassin's Creed because I didn't like the framing of the story. Like, it kind of took me out of the idea of the game, which is weird because like already you're playing a simulation of this story, so it shouldn't matter different levels of it. But the fact that you're playing memories and like of somebody else's life and not actually playing their life kind of like I was like, I can't really connect to this character if I just know that I'm playing a simulation of his memories or whatever. So I stopped playing. And it's kind of happened to my boyfriend as well, where he was just like, I didn't realize there was this separate level to it. So it kind of like keeps us detached from caring about anything that's happening in the game. But I guess we're gonna get through it as much as we can. So it's also a short game, and it was, I think I got it on sale for like $9. So we're gonna get through it. And if we don't, then not much was lost.
And apparently their memories include a lot of mills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one person was really, really terrible at mills. They just had to get
It's a
through.
very memorable game.
But it's very interesting because the game rules are not what I understand to be in mills. So the reason why we lost $200 the first time is because we're like, we're winning, and it was like, you lost, and I was like, what? I don't understand what just happened. So like they have different rules that they play by, which is odd because I've never seen that happen. Maybe they're like historically accurate. I'm not sure.
It would be interesting if they had like historically accurate mills with different rules.
That would be cool.
Biblically accurate mills.
Yeah.
Yeah. Damn.
The other game that I've been playing co-op lately has been Helldivers 2. My nephew and I have pulled my dad into that, and also my sister, his mom, have been pulled in as well. So every few days we get everybody online and like, all right, we're gonna go diving today. My nephew's like level 62 or something like that last time I checked. I'm like level 5. So we have a bit of catching up to do with that. But so far it's been fun. We've been enjoying this last update.
My God, the birds are wilding out.
Yeah.
So Helldivers 2 I was in. So Plague Tale Requiem I started playing. I played the first one last year when... Oh, the idea was when we first moved here, I wanted to download as many of the games that I had digitally on my PlayStation 5. So at least if we had no online abilities for that first 2 weeks or whatever, we could at least have something to do in the house. And then we didn't do anything, but I, like 2 months later, I was like, you know what? I have these games here. I'm going to get through them. So I played the first Plague Tale last year. Played it in about a week. Those last 2 missions were very frustratingly hard that I retired it at first. And then I went back the next 2 days and like calmed down a little bit and was able to finish the rest of the game. So it was a decent game, and I already bought the sequel, Requiem, just because it was a cheap physical copy. So I was like, sure, I want to play the next one, whatever. But I also had not heard anybody mention if this game was good or not. Like, I heard a lot of people talking about Innocence, but I heard nobody talking about Requiem. So I was like, I don't know if this game was good, if people enjoyed it. Is there going to be another one? So, breaking news today, apparently there's going to be another one. So I will focus a little bit more on playing this one this week, probably. I'm still enjoying it. A lot of the things that annoyed me in the first one are still here, but I think I like the mechanics of this one better. It's kind of like Last of Us and Last of Us 2, where the first one was great, but they just tweaked a few little quality of life things that I was like, this makes it just that more fun to play it in this one.
Right.
So hopefully for the next one, it's even better. So yeah, so it's good to know that there is more to come for this one. So yeah, the little brother is so annoying, but I understand that the whole point is that she's trying to help him. So hopefully I will reconcile that at some point in this. I'm also still playing Infinity Nikki. I've been saying, I think there's like 8 main chapters or whatever, and I'm only really caring for like the actual story of it. But I am kind of getting sucked in, not into like the gacha section of it, but apparently everything that you need to get like all the gacha things you get in games. So like you don't really have to pay for anything. So if you don't actually care about paying money for it, you don't have to. So like I do a little mission, get some of the currency, turn it into the crystals, and then just throw it at like some outfit that like I only have one outfit that I was caring about. I was like, oh, just keep spinning until I get the dress. And then once I get the dress, I'm like, all right, that doesn't exist. I don't need to do the entire outfit. I just want certain, sections of the outfit. Whatever.
Right.
Now this update, they allow you to dye certain things. So like that sparked another thing in my head where now I was like, now I need to have like a Princess Leia outfit. Now I need to have a Jessica Rabbit outfit. Like I need, like, for some reason I was like, oh, I'm just going to just make for fun all these different kinds of outfits in Infinity Nikki, where it's just basically cosplaying inside of a game.
Okay, so not like actually branded stuff. You're just talking, you're doing it for fun.
Yeah,
Okay,
like they gave me like space buns, and I was like, if I can dye those brown, I can make a Princess Leia outfit. And then I was like, oh my god, all the creativity just sparks from there. So like, I needed to dye all the pink hair is brown and like some not bright color, and like I changed everything to like decent looking colors and not pastel and pastel goth the way they are. So I was like, okay, now I feel like I can do fashion better when it's like colors I can stand and not looking like Barbie's little sister or something. I am also playing. I started GTA Chinatown Wars on mobile, but I didn't realize when I downloaded it that you can only play for like 30 minutes or so before you have to actually buy the full game or whatever. Like they make you log into like Rockstar Games or whatever. So I was like, I had wanted this ages ago before Rockstar Games like online launcher thing was even a thing. And my friend had told me to download it, didn't do it, and now I guess it's only $5, it's fine. I will eventually get around to it because people have always told me that this is a really good one to play. And I didn't have it for PSP or whatever it was for.
Nintendo DS,
it's my mission to play this one because apparently it's a gem that I missed.
And $5 is pretty cheap, fortunately.
Yeah, so I was like, you know what? Like that's fine, considering if I wanted to actually get the DS or the PSP version, it'd probably be a lot more money. So I will take that. Especially since now I'm not playing the other fashion games on mobile. So I was like, well, I have the time now. So I'll get to that.
Lots of fashion in this, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, it's the combat that I was looking for in Nikki, so there's that.
Right.
Harvest Moon I refound on Nintendo Switch Online because that was the very first farming sim, and really the only one that I've really cared about over the years. So that was added to Nintendo Switch Online a while ago. So I started that up again. And it was so nice because like I have a lot of memories of it, but like they're not specific memories. I just remember like working on the farm and being worried about the fence being broken and being, like little daily chores. But I'm like, I know nothing of the story. So it was like, wow, I feel like I'm playing this game all over again, like for the first time, because it's like I remember how everything works, but I knew nothing about what anybody's going to tell me at any given day. So that's been fun. Kind Words 2, I went back into, and that kind of sparked a bit of a writing craze for myself. There's one section of Kind Words where you can do like a poetry slam or whatever. So I went through. So they'll give you like little prompts to do different poems or whatever, or write a poem about this, write a poem about that. So I spent like maybe like 2 hours the other day just writing little poems here and there for the poetry slam and then reading other people's poems. So
cool.
that got me. that got me really back into writing. So now for the last week, I've been like going through like all my old stuff and trying to see if like I want to have any of it published. I don't even know if they have magazines or whatever do that. Just that one session of Kind Words really like re-sparked that whole writing passion of mine. So that was fun. So then I went back in and like every few days I check in on like different parts of the game, because there's one section where like you can go to like a void and just like yell into the void and like nobody will ever hear it besides the void. And then there's the other one where it's like a chain in the forest where you can just go and like you can just read what other people's thoughts are on like this one specific topic. Or like, oh, I spent a lot of time in the music shop, because the music shop you just get recommendations about different things. So like movies that you want to watch or TV that you want to watch, you like ask other people like their recommendations for things. So that I sat there for like a while because I was like getting to the end of like movies available to me on my streaming services. So I was like, let me ask the people in Kind Words, see like what they're gonna say. So that was
just
fun.
like real life.
Yeah. So that was a nice little digital excursion for me. And I did start playing the Pathless again, even though again it's a nice concept of a game where you're just kind of running around this like platformy world trying to rid the malaise that has taken over, and you've got a little bird friend that helps you out. But it's just like so opaque at times on like what you need to do, and like kind of frustrating. Actually, the parkour reminds me a lot of the parkour from Forspoken. Reminds me a lot of the dashing around in this one. That's probably why I liked it so much.
All right.
So, but again, this game is only 6 hours, so like I keep putting it into retirement because I can't deal with it. And then being like, but it's only 6 hours, and taking it back out of retirement and playing it again. Because I'm like, I need to finish this game. I can't retire a short ass game like.
I mean, it's only 6 hours. It's like, man, if I just push through like another hour or two, I'm basically at the end, right?
Yeah. So I keep like oscillating on it. So we'll see where it stands next.
No game's ever truly gone.
It's true. I have pulled games out of retirement before. Pony Island was one of them that I had pulled out of retirement because it was game of the month.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna play this now, and then I beat it. So sometimes you just need a very long break.
Yeah, I've done that too. So I feel you. And I already don't even retire much. So.
Right. That's it for my games.
Well, shit.
And I think that means that we've just gone through that whole segment.
I guess that brings us into our discussion topic in this episode, which will begin with our memories of our very first games and then move on to somewhat of a kind of gateway games that might have opened up something new to us eventually. But yeah, our very first. Do we all remember our actual first game, or how confident are we that our first game is actually our first game?
I am 100%
very little confidence.
Two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, immediately two sides, two difference. I'm like 80% confident.
I know
I'm
that
100%
the first.
confident.
I have memories of going to Kitty City. It wasn't even Toys R Us. Kitty City, we went and we bought the NES with it was called Kitty City. And we bought the NES with Super Mario Bros. And I want to say we also got Duck Hunt, because I know we had the light gun, but I don't remember us having that. Maybe we did. I remember looking at the box in the bag with the receipt on it. And then I remember, once it was all set up, my mom playing Tetris.
Yeah.
And also, like, my mom was the one who, like, figured out, like, the different tunnels of Super Mario Bros. Where you like, run across the top and, like, go to the warp pipes and everything like that. She was just like, no, she knew exactly how far to jump and whatever. And I was just like, I don't know what we're doing. Whatever. and her playing Tetris and then playing like Zelda at my cousin's house or whatever. But like I don't. The first one where I picked it had to have been something that came with the NES, but it's possible that I could have had like I think Tiger Electronics came later because I know I had a few of those growing up.
Ooh.
It's also honestly debatable if Tiger Electronics count as a video game.
I think
All
they are
right.
on How Long to Beat, though, aren't they? I think so.
I don't know. Although, I mean, to be fair, for How Long to Beat, as long as Everdread thinks it counts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair.
It's not like an ultimate authority.
To me, it is.
We are the ultimate authority on all games.
Yeah.
But it's also possible that there was, it might have been Tiger Electronics, and it's also possible that I know my sister had an Atari, but I don't know if that was ever plugged in at our house while I was there alive. So,
I mean,
it's
also,
possible
if it's
I could have played
hers,
that when I was like 3 or whatever. But
I mean, also,
I
if it was
remember
hers,
seeing
it
it in
wasn't your
her
first
closet.
game necessarily, right?
Yeah.
Well, okay, so yeah, this is an interesting point here. Well, I thought this was basically the first game we've played, not the first that we've owned. That was my going into
Yeah.
this. And so so you said the first game that you played was basically something that you bought with the console as a family, which is
Yeah.
interesting. I
Mario Bros was definitely the first that we completed because I think that was the only one that we could complete. Like, I don't think there might be an end to Duck Hunt, but I don't think any of us ever tried to get through it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we definitely completed Super Mario Bros as a family. So
I'm curious to hear how many of the others here where the first game was something they actually owned. For me, I didn't own my first game. It was a pure coincidence that I was able to play it as a single digit aged kid. I don't remember how old I was. I was at a hospital for a surgery, whatever, and I shared my room with another kid. And that kid had the original brick Game Boy with Super Mario Land. So I have I have
nice.
no idea who that kid is or where that kid is today. We did not keep in contact, but I do very vividly remember that we did sit in his bed and I watched him play Super Mario Land. I'm pretty sure I played a little bit of it as well. 80% confident that's the first time I even saw a video game.
oh wow,
And we did
that's pretty cool though.
eventually.
I mean, not the surgery,
we,
but
yeah, not the surgery. That sucked.
so cool. You were in the hospital.
Hell yeah. we we did eventually buy a Game Boy, and Super Mario Land was one of the games that we did at some point. I was never able to beat that though, and I only
Really?
beat that when I only beat that when I revisited it as an adult a
I mean,
couple
I guess
months
actually
ago,
it's
I
fair.
believe. Yeah, it was always there as the unbeatable thing. Only the adults were able to beat it for some reason. And I don't even think it's that hard, but I just sucked
It
at
gives you a
it.
lot of extra lives.
Yeah, I guess
That's
so.
true. I do remember that part of it. My mom had it for a game. I remember buying my mom. I think it was either for her birthday or for Mother's Day. We got her the very first Game Boy, gray one.
Yeah.
But she played Mario Land all the time. But I don't remember.
Wow.
I don't know if she ever finished that. I think most of the time she was playing Tetris. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
see,
As
I
one
think
should.
yeah,
yeah.
see, I wasn't able to appreciate Tetris as much back in the day. I had to grow into that one.
Yeah,
Super Mario
same.
Land I still kind of appreciate as being one of the like kind of awkward Mario games. Like it kind of makes it more
It's
appealing to
funky.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's something that makes it
Yeah,
fun
it's
to go
definitely
back to.
quirky.
It's funky. And who knows, maybe that kid in the hospital is watching the podcast to this day, by the way.
Oh.
This conversation is kind of unlocking some childhood memories for me. It's funny, stuff that I didn't
Yeah.
even remember until like stuff was just mentioned a couple seconds ago. But so I think my first video game that I played probably would have been, I had an older cousin who had a Game Boy. And I couldn't tell you like what games he had on said Game Boy. He probably let me like play it, for like a couple seconds, to be like nice older cousin type situation. But the first game that I owned I got a Game Boy Pocket for one of my birthdays, probably like age 4, I want to say. Yeah, I think age 4. And I'm guessing one of the first games I got for that was Pac-Man. If not Pac-Man, I think Tetris was another early acquisition for that system. Super Mario Land
It
2,
all
6 Golden
comes back to
Coins, could have been an
Tetris.
old one. Mickey Mouse Magic Wands is one that I remember from that era. So I'm not exactly sure which one of those was the first one that I owned. Oh, the Lion King Game Boy game. I remember I was so super stuck on that one
Oh
for
no.
years and years and years. If I had to bet money on one, I would guess that Pac-Man would be my first video game. But again, not
Well,
certain.
you know what they say, video games have come a long way since Pac-Man.
So for me, I thought this question was like the first video game we had rather than literally the first one we played. I think it's the same answer for me either way though. Now like maybe like I was out in like a pizza place that had an arcade game when I was really young or something, and maybe I like messed around with
Oh.
that. That's the kind of thing like I guess I couldn't confirm that never happened. But my memory is I definitely know what game I first had, which is Lego Racers for the Nintendo 64, which is also the first console
Jeez.
I ever had. I believe I mentioned the game before, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I got it. I got it in 1999. I was 5. It's also the same year I got my cat. Blue Kitty. What was What was I gonna say? I mean, the one funny thing about Lego Racers is my mom grew up on like the NES and stuff where you didn't need a memory card. So when we purchased Nintendo 64 and Lego Racers, we didn't purchase a memory card. And I beat like the first Grand Prix as a kid, and of course as a kid I'm all excited and stuff. And then the game's like, oh, you need a memory card to save. We're like, what do we do? So we had to drive back to we kept it on all night naturally, and we drove to GameStop the next day and we got a memory card. And we just shoved it in there and all was well.
Parents not understanding save features has been such a classic source of catastrophe, I feel. Everybody
It
has like a
is.
horror story, I feel. Yeah.
I feel like one good thing is after that she did at least get she got it pretty quickly because like I said she has like gaming
Yeah.
interest kind of thing. But I feel like to an extent one reason those stories exist is like even the ones who were gamers at that time, which would be like our age at this point, like they grew up with like the NES and SNES where it wasn't ever a thing to think about like a memory card or whatever.
Yeah.
Perfect situation to make mistakes.
It's interesting because I remember with PlayStation where like the memory pack on 64 was one thing, but then like memory for PlayStation was like abysmal. Like we had so many memory cards, and I remember once that started becoming a thing, I was like, I'm so mad about this because I was like, I don't like having to keep buying memory cards just to save my
Right.
stuff. Like this should be part of the system.
Yeah,
I had like a whole rant about it because I was like, no, I don't like spending more money just to save the game. Like that should be a feature.
Oh man, imagine if that was a thing now, trying to save like all of Call of Duty.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the enticing advantages of the memory cards, of course, was that you could carry it to your friend's house
That's
and then
right.
have multiplayer stuff with your individual stuff in the game and whatever.
Yeah, I didn't have
Problem that
friends.
requires friends.
Right. You can't buy those at the store.
Unfortunately, yeah.
I grew up with a NASCAR fan. So even though obviously Lego Racers and NASCAR are extremely different in like the how, it means that I did have interest in racing. You know what I mean? So, it worked out really well. Which also means my first console was the Nintendo 64, by the way. Which I think, relatively solid choice overall.
Yeah, I think so. There are so many legendary games on that really like formed the industry, I feel.
Yeah.
It's a
Although I
strong one
never
to
had
start with.
Ocarina of Time. I had Super Mario 64, but never
Oh,
Ocarina
yeah.
of Time.
Me neither. So, okay, so that was like our first touching ground with video games. And I guess now we
Right.
could be talking about gateway games. And I think even here there's like two broad categories, I feel. And I'm curious how hard we're gonna touch on each on these. Because, right, for one, we have the gateway games that were early in our gaming history or whatever, that really like introduced something new to us because we didn't know any better. That's interesting in itself. What I'm really interested in, maybe after that, is actually games that that has walked as a gateway much later in our experience, where we already, have played a bunch of stuff and it was still able to open up something new to us as an adult or whatever. So we got these two categories. Anybody want to start with something here?
Yeah,
I
I can kick
have.
us off for this section because this is a game that I've mentioned a couple of times in this podcast before, so it's going to be kind of like retreading old ground. But as I've mentioned previously, Dead by Daylight was sort of like my catalyst for exploring the genre of
Yeah.
horror. Like I've mentioned previously, I'm a huge scaredy cat. I don't do well with scary games and everything, but Dead by Daylight sort of provided horror in like a not so scary, accessible format for me. And because there are so many character crossovers for like other different horror franchises, it pushed my curiosity to the point where I wanted to sort of like check out some of the other to fully see like the backstories, the origins of where all of these like characters that I'm seeing in DBD all the time are coming from, and to see like how much their gameplay in DBD is similar to their gameplay in the original games, etc. So I've mentioned this before, but I got into Resident Evil partially because I watched a lot of streamers play it and I had fun doing that, and partially because I had played so much DBD and seen so many Resident Evil characters in that series. And I will say, beyond just gaming, DBD did sort of like kick off my interest in horror genre across like media as a whole. So last year, for example, horror was my most read genre. I started with Stephen King's It, and then did a couple other things after that. I'm currently reading House of Leaves and thoroughly enjoying that.
Oh,
I watched the Helldivers, not Helldivers, Hellraiser, whichever movie Pin that's from. I watched that because
Hellraiser.
I watched that because DVD. I watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre just because DVD. I still need to watch like Halloween and like Ghostface and The Ring because I feel like since I spent so much time playing with those characters in DVD, I should probably pay tribute to their origins as well. But those ones are a little bit. I'm still a bit scared to work with the courage for those ones. But yeah, DVD is sort of like a gateway for me in that sense.
Have you ever seen Alien or The Thing?
I have not seen Alien, and I've been meaning to see Alien since the Alien was added to DVD. Ever since they added him, my friends and I made like tentative plans shortly after the Alien announcement, and we just like never followed through with it. So I need to watch independently at this point. But yeah,
Well, I will recommend it's really good. So, newsflash,
Yeah.
I'm sure, but I'm just gonna add my personal. I'm just gonna add my personal opinion. It's very, very good. So,
I hear good things about it, so I'm looking forward to it.
yeah. I have multiple games I could bring up here. I'm probably not going to bring them up all at once, so I'm not monopolizing the conversation immediately. But I would say one that's recent and funny enough kind of fits with me talking about Lego Racers to an extent is I always had like an enjoyment of racing games. And I can think of a few games for that, like Mario Kart Classic. For me, NASCAR Thunder 2003, probably one of the biggest games that made me interested in racing games, But for me, I've never really had a lot of like big arcade racer experience. I would say a lot of my games either kind of fell into kart racers, not quite sim racers, but like NASCAR Thunder 2003 is like probably in the midpoint, a simcade, I suppose they call it. Or occasionally stuff like Beetle Adventure Racing. but I played Ridge Racer Type 4, I believe, 2 years ago at this point, something like that. And man, that really set me off. That game is so good. It's, it takes a moment to learn, and yet it's very intuitive kind of thing. The vibes and aesthetic of the turn of the 2000s, Y2K, kind of optimistic, kind of interesting energy is extremely evident and extremely good all over the game. And like that game has like 4 different little campaign modes that are similar, basically just difficulty options with different story. And I would say, depending on what game mode it is, probably 2 to 6 hours each. I think I just did all of them straight in like 2 days because I was so invested, even though some of the courses were kicking my ass. And then I just did 2 more on lower difficulties afterwards because I was just having fun, kind of thing. But that, I would say, really kicked me off to play like more arcade racers. I played the first Ridge Racer Revolution. I played like multiple cruising games, Daytona USA, Sega Rally Championship, etc., etc. And those are games that were on my radar before, but I wasn't like super invested, super interested the way I am now. And now I've been like, man, I just want to try more and more racers. So Ridge Racer Type 4, I think that was like a big little genre opener for a genre like I liked, but I hadn't truly explored the depth of a lot of parts of it.
Actually wanna I have racing stuff as well that fits very well here because I have similar
Nice.
stuff going on or whatever. Like I did grow up with my first racing games being stuff like F-Zero and to a degree Mario Kart as well, and also later on Need for Speed Underground that were my like more formative stuff. So for a long time my life racing games was always about like the fantastic action or like the slightly edgy street racing and whatever. And it was only I think 3 or 4 years ago when I, out of curiosity, booted up the original Gran Turismo on PlayStation 1, which
Alright.
for the first time kind of opened up kind of also the whole like Simcade stuff that you already mentioned, but also just made me appreciate like the regular vanilla track racing and made that appealing to me. As a younger kid, I guess those were like too boring and bland for me, but Gran Turismo with its just super satisfying, stylish gameplay made it really, really appealing and really, really interesting to focus in on improving getting through those tracks, despite not having the intense adrenaline action of like an anti-grav racer or like a street race or whatever. And that also introduced me a little bit to a more extensive campaign mode where you have to not just do races, but also actually earn licenses to even be able to drive cars and actually take care of your car to a certain degree.
Yeah.
That really opened it up for me. And also, of course, because it was of that era, it also made me more interested in more arcade games of the time. That's how I then got into the original Ridge Racer, which I loved so much. And many of the games
Nice.
that you mentioned are on my list right now. I feel like we are on a similar journey, but I'm a couple steps behind you still. You know what I mean? That's why I love to hear your experiences with these racing games. It's super cool.
Yeah, same. Especially because I feel like, honestly, not only is it like a few steps, I almost feel like to an extent we're coming from like opposite directions to an extent.
True, yeah.
So I've heard of like snow mobile games and stuff like that, but I haven't looked into them
Yeah.
much. But honestly,
Yeah.
you talking about them, I've added like multiple games you've mentioned to like my backlog or wish list because they sound
Yes.
interesting.
Same the other way around, yeah, for sure.
Yes. If you ever get to Ridge Racer Type 4, I'm gonna be really interested in what you think because
Yeah.
I've become really hype about that game.
Yeah, that's definitely on my list. I've heard many great things about it. But it's like, what actually like um amazes me with all this is that I feel like, especially, I think Ridge Racer, the original, is like this perfect poster child for this because it technically only has 4 tracks, if you want to be generous, which is always the
Yeah.
same track with slight alterations, because it came from those old arcade machines that were still very much limited to what they could do or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a joke, I guess, for people of the future looking back or whatever. But it's so interesting to me to have that played that and like coming out of it as only having 4 tracks is awesome because it's focusing the gameplay so tightly on practicing one specific thing and
Right.
getting really
On
good at it
maximize.
in
Yeah.
yeah, in different increments. I love that about the older generation of racing games. It's something I don't think anybody looking into modern games would really look for most of the time. But we all have this giant backlog, this giant back catalog of games that have exactly this going on because they were made in that time, and I'm
Yeah.
so enjoying that now because I was introduced to that through things like Ridge Racer and whatever, and things
I
like
feel
uh,
sorry.
and playing V Rally as well, putting me on the track of rally games of the time and things like those
Oh
all
yeah.
opened up rooms that I still am really eager to explore. It's so cool in the racing genre alone, which is already such a small space, I feel.
Yeah, V-Rally I've thought about looking at. I will say about the original Ridge Racer that I did feel like some of that was blunted to me because I didn't really like how the first Ridge Racer felt. So I didn't
Yeah,
feel quite as invested to kind of get into it. I will
yeah,
say, I don't know if you've ever played Ridge Racer 64,
not yet.
but okay. Well, Ridge Racer 64 has all the first Ridge Racer tracks, all the Ridge Racer Revolution tracks, and then like a smattering of new tracks. And personally, I like its physics more than the original Ridge Racers. So if you want to kind of go through the Ridge Racer games like that with a little twist, then it would be worth checking out. Only thing I'll say is that, especially if you want to complete like the whole thing, it's hard.
Oh gosh, okay. I appreciate the
by
warning.
by far the most difficult Ridge Racer I've played.
Okay, I think that's
Anyway,
gonna be enough of racing for now. Yeah.
I mean, I can only say basically my gateway games are like the games that are on our 4 games that complete us or whatever. Basically, what I did want to say was that I was thinking about this in the middle of Forspoken, but when I was younger, I guess I was always waiting for open world to be like a thing. Because when I was younger, I used to have
Mm.
like this game that I used to do where I would have like a story in my head, and I was like, I'm going to play this across different games. So like, you know, we'll wake up in the morning, I would like restart a game where like the character wakes up in the morning or whatever and does like little things around the house before they leave. And then, oh, they got to get in their car. So I would take that out, put it in Mario Kart. We drive around for a bit, and then take that out, put something else in. Oh, now they're going to go, hang out with their friends. So they get into a fight. Okay, put in like Street Fighter. And now we're going to fight them out, and pretend that's that person, and like I would just do like all these different things to like plan out the storyline of like whatever I was doing. And I was like, I want there to be a game at one point that has all of this where it's just in one game or whatever. And like for some reason, like running around Forspoken reminded me of that. And I was like, oh, this is why I like open world games so much, because I have all of that in finally like one game where I could just like go around and do little side quests here and there and like get little side things beyond the main story or whatever. So it was that, I think that's why I liked GTA 3 so much when I first played it, because it was like, oh, finally you can get in the car, you can go over here, you can do this, you can do that, and I was like, oh my god, games are finally catching up to like my creativity, finally. But so that was like one thing, and I would say also Legend of Zelda: Links to the Past being the first game that I finally completed on my own, that kind of like gave that spark, which then also followed into Grand Theft Auto 3 years later, where I was like, oh, I completed that game 100%. And I was like, not only did I beat the main thing, but I did everything there was possible to do in this game. And like that, those two games were like little tears on the weight of being like, okay, now I still am not a person that goes after like achievements or whatever. So I'm not 100% completionist or whatever. But those are still kind of like those two are up there. I would say also Beyond Good and Evil was like the first time that we had a game where like photography existed as like a quest in the game or whatever, or as like as a goal point or whatever. And like I don't know what it was about that I just found so amazing, that like it was able to know when I took the shot. Like at that point, I remember thinking like, oh, we'll just take a picture of whatever. They'll know that we took a photo, and it'll be, it'll be marked as good. And it's like, no, you have to get a certain angle of the shot or whatever you need for, their journalistic integrity. And I remember that was like one of the first games where I started to see like a little of politics thrown into games, where it was like, oh, you're like an investigative journalist, and you have to like find out like what the conspiracy is, and like you have to like go, sneak in, not only to like help your friend and get your friend out or whatever, but like you need to get the story out to the masses or whatever. It's like, oh, I didn't realize that we could, games weren't just about, defeat the big bad or whatever. So I kind of, that was one of those like, oh, games can be also like adult stories or like more, that ending
cool,
also
honestly.
was another very, huh?
I said that's pretty cool, honestly. Just like having
that was
moment.
Yeah, it was one of those things where it was like, I know that there was like mature games, and then there were like games for everyone else, but that was like one of the first games that I played that was like, oh, you can have adult themes and like emotions and sadness in a game that really you wouldn't have expected otherwise. So, and I would say along that also, Last of Us was like, I'm not a horror person either. So like I ignore a lot of the Resident Evil and Silent Hills and everything. I don't want to touch those at all. But Last of Us, I was like, I think I could make, Also, I don't like stealth. So survival horror stealth game should have been terrible. But, I gave it a try. And the storyline to that is still something that my dad and I, we discuss a lot. So, so that
like
also got me into, that got me into more like, oh, let's look for games. Let's search for that more in games, more about storylines and like emotions and like things that you think about after the game that stay with you, and not just like, whoa, we beat that bad guy. The end, credits roll,
Right.
So
definitely.
So yeah, so those games for sure. I want to say that it was Tetris on the DS where I really started focusing on Tetris personally. Like I've always had Tetris on every single console that I've had, but it was never really something that I was like focused on until my mom and we both got DSs. We had one Tetris cartridge, and so like we were swapping it between the two of us. But like that was the one I remember. We would just be in the car, and I would close my eyes, and I was like, "Oh, I can see the blocks now," And I was like, "Oh, okay, I've made it to that." Yeah, I've made that part of. I've made it to that moment in video game lifestyle.
Enlightenment.
But yeah, yeah,
Well,
and still to this day, my mom will play it sometimes, and like in DS1, you can. It's playing Super Mario across the top, so like the whole goal is to like play enough Tetris so you can get to Bowser. So like she'll be like, every time I visit now, she's just like, oh, I almost got to Bowser yesterday. Like nobody else understands that sentence, but like, oh yeah, I know because we play Tetris.
Honestly,
I think that's pretty much it. Also, one last thing that I wanted to mention was Diddy Kong Racing. because
Diddy Kong Racing.
Diddy Kong Racing.
Classic.
The other day, I had a dream the other day that I was playing like a kart racing, like plane game, and I was like, why doesn't there like exist a game where you're flying like a plane or whatever, or a helicopter or whatever, but like kart racing style? I was like, I want that game. I went looking, and apparently I can't find anything like that. And I was like, we need to bring Diddy Kong Racing back, because that one had three. It had the carts, it had the water craft, and it had the flying as well.
That's I think Mario Kart killed those, because Mario Kart did the hybrid thing, and now we will only have the hybrid thing and not dedicated flight races anymore. Like, I feel like Mario Kart
we need to regress a bit.
Sabotaged that.
I mean, honestly, realistically, the thing that probably killed it is just Rare being owned by Microsoft, in terms of, because they were gonna make they were gonna have like a Diddy Kong Racing like port on the Game Boy Advance before they got
There was something recently. I think they were trying to do with Banjo-Kazooie or something. They were like, we're gonna reboot this with other characters in there, but I don't know.
Recently,
some of the devs recently
I saw it recently.
Some of the devs recently, they were like, man, it sure would be nice if someone would, help us make or reboot Banjo-Kazooie, wink, wink. You know what I mean? Now, that doesn't really mean crap, but I mean, Microsoft has certainly been a lot more willing to give their stuff, multi-platform, etc., etc., so who knows? It's not impossible. I mean, they're just sitting on the IP.
Yeah.
I do want to say, kind of in relation to one or two things Leah said, because I since all of us have talked about our Tetris experience, in a sense, I would say like my introduction to Tetris was playing Tetris Game Boy, on like, I think during this while we were doing these podcasts or just before, in part because of Matt talking about Tetris so much, and Tetris is such a classic game. I really should try it. And honestly, I really, really enjoy it. I mean, I kind of knew I was gonna enjoy it. It's Tetris. You know what I mean? I've played Pokemon Puzzle League and stuff.
Oh yeah.
But I will say it did make me want to explore the depths of Tetris more, for what that counts.
Hell yeah.
But
Tetris Effect is on sale right now.
Oh shit! I can't afford it, but it is on sale.
Yeah, it is on sale.
Oh yeah,
that's a fact.
It's undeniable. Actually, it's going to confuse all our viewers, because by the time this podcast comes out, it probably won't be on sale.
Probably won't be. Okay.
But the one other thing I wanted to say was, Leon mentioned open world games, and I've kind of never been big on open world games. I kind of always feel like general opinion is that they end up being too large, basically. I've kind of always been
nowadays
interested.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, even I would say when I first thought that way was when I saw Skyrim, honestly.
Yeah. I had skipped Skyrim, but that's how I felt with Breath of the Wild, where it was like, I'm gonna play this game, but I am so overwhelmed just looking. And I felt the same way with Ghost of Tsushima. Like, that I just like zoomed out on the map and I was like, yep, that's not happening.
Like, funny enough, that's the game I'm talking about is actually Breath of the Wild, because that's why I thought I probably wasn't going to enjoy Breath of the Wild much.
Yeah.
Because of the fact I haven't generally liked those kind of wide open world games. Which also, as a quick aside, one reason that I've been attracted to like the Yakuza games and wanting to try them, because they seem more like the kind of like open world games I'm interested in, where they're very dense, basically, that kind of style. But so I, when I went into Breath of the Wild, I kind of was expecting myself not to enjoy it, but I wanted to try it on the basis that it's such a big game. I'm getting my Switch. It's Legend of Zelda. I generally like those. all that kind of stuff. I actually really, really enjoyed Breath of the Wild, and I will say it's made me reconsider, kind of going back to various open world games where maybe I was like, well, the map seems kind of large and empty, and at least giving them a go, basically. Because, I mean, like, I've had Skyrim for over a decade and I've never opened it.
Yeah.
But, I would say that. I feel like for Breath of the Wild, one reason is that since it was a post-apocalyptic nature is reclaimed thing setting, like, the wide openness without a lot of development makes a lot of sense. It fits the themes very well. But that's a game that's made me want to investigate open world games more, basically. So I would say that counts for what we're talking about.
It's funny because that was the reason why I didn't want to play Breath of the Wild initially, because I thought it was going to be too like gritty, like Red Dead, which I hadn't played yet. But I was just like, I don't want this in my Zelda. I want fantasy and fluff in my Zelda. So I was like, I don't need to be, cooking animals and doing stuff like that. But it actually was. It actually slowly going through Breath of the Wild was definitely fun, and then revisiting that in Tears of the Kingdom was also a great time. So
yeah, I get you. Like, funny enough. Oh, right, I remember. All I was gonna say is that despite the fact I like Legend of Zelda games, I haven't beaten many of them. Breath of the Wild is actually only the second Zelda game I've beaten all the way. And the first one was the original Legend of Zelda.
Oh my god.
People don't even like that, don't they?
It's good! Unironically, I think the original is good.
Yeah, I think I like the first one. The second one is the one that people don't like.
Yeah, Legend of Zelda 2 is the one that's generally disliked. I think a lot of people do think Zelda 1 is, like, archaic, which, I mean, it was, like, a 1985 NES game, so fair. But, like, Zelda 2 is the one that people generally just are like, nah, because it had a very different gameplay style.
Yeah,
anyway.
The first one was very bare bones, and there was, like, if you didn't read the booklet, there was no story, really. You just had to figure it out.
Yeah.
And then 2 was like, we're gonna do side-scrolling like every other RPG is doing at this time. And then that was chaotic. And then Link to the Past was really when they were like, okay, what if we made this our own franchise and did something actual with it? That's when we got the story that everybody knows.
Yeah, what if we just refined the first game to a mere shine kind of thing?
Yeah. And actually put the story, the intro and the story in the intro.
Yeah, I feel like my taste in gaming tends to be pretty varied to begin with, so I don't really know that I've had an experience where I played a game and been like, oh, this is like, I need to, besides like the aforementioned DBD is the exception, but I don't think I've had an experience. I played a game, like I need to play more in this genre now. I feel like I've been kind of scattered to begin with. I have had instances where I played, like, for example, one game in a series, and then that's gotten me to sort of do a deeper dive on other games in the series. Like last year, I played Metroid for the first time and ended up playing like 3 or 4 Metroid games. After I played Dark Souls, I had a little FromSoft moment. But yeah, that's about all I have.
I didn't even think about that until just now, but I played Metroid Zero, and I was like, you know what? I should play more games with female protagonists. And now I just did Forspoken and Infinity Nikki, so apparently that's one of them for me.
I mean, that's pretty good, actually. That's good. Funny enough, I had not played a lot of Metroidvanias. I mentioned this, so I won't go into it too hard, but when Metroid Dread was announced, I've always been interested in Metroid, but I never committed kind of thing. I'm like, I'm gonna play Super Metroid, and then I just completed like 5 Metroid games in a month because they're all so good.
I'm so excited to get back to that one because everybody keeps mentioning that and Fusion, and I'm like, okay, I get it. I know. I'm gonna play them eventually.
Yeah,
I just gotta get into it.
I'm sure it won't be everybody's cup of tea, but it's the kind of game that
Even then though, like I played Super Metroid and it wasn't quite my cup of tea, gameplay wise, but the atmosphere I still think about it. So cool in that regard.
It's honestly like one of the best games for like no like dialogue storytelling, I feel like, and just like
Yeah.
pure environmental and gameplay storytelling, especially the ending. I felt it's honestly one of the best for that, I think. But probably one or two more I'll say before we just. I won't necessarily take too long because I feel like. Now
I have
maybe.
I have a
All right, I'll let you go next.
yeah, yeah. Some I think more prominent like quote unquote gateway games for me were um games that like stopped me from being afraid of like an intimidating genre. Um, in the last episode, I was, I think it was the last episode, I was talking about Ninja Gaiden and how the original first Ninja Gaiden was kind of a thing that I was terrified of at first because of its infamous standing as one of the most difficult games and whatever. And then actually did try and loved and still call it one of my favorite games and whatever. There was like a sort of gateway in that sense that made me like braver or whatever to actually tackle games that seem interesting but too difficult for me.
Right.
Though that one especially like counted in the platformer genre, of course. I had another similar experience, I think last year. There's this game called Space Moth. I think it's on some console platforms, but I of course played it on PC. It's on Steam. It's a very, very pretty looking bug-filled shoot 'em up. Specifically a bullet hell shoot 'em up. So one of those scrolling games where you control a flying object and try to dodge a million projectiles on the screen, that sort of thing. And bullet hell as a genre was always something that seemed uh, insane to me. I didn't understand how this makes sense as a game unless you like actually dedicate your entire day to practice this one thing or whatever. It just didn't make sense to me. But as I tried Space Moth because I loved the bug theme and the visuals, I learned so much about the genre, about the typical mechanics and whatever. Like, uh, the main thing probably is that bullet hells, if you see some footage of those, always look harder than you think. Because I believe if you never played one of those, you expect the entire sprite of your character to have
Right.
hitbox, which is not actually the case. Usually in a bullet hell, the only actual hitbox of your character is like a small dot in the middle of the sprite, and the rest can be touched, no problem. Yeah, and that was one of those realizations trying that game on a whim that that like suddenly this whole thing made much more sense. And then there are other features where you have abilities to change your movement speed, so you have more precise movement when you
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
it, but it's also tied to specific attacks, so you have to be strategic when you activate these and all of that stuff. It really was like learning a language for the first time or whatever. Here's the philosophy of game development for a world that I've never entered before, and now stuff that I've only seen from afar actually make sense. And I remember grinding that game out to the best of my abilities and actually beating it at some point. There was a huge celebrated success for me. I still uh, I was telling all of my friends, "Hey, I beat my very first bullet hell. I feel great." It was really, really
Hell
cool.
yeah.
And that really did lead me down to like the history of shoot 'em ups as a whole, but also the subgenre of bullet hells. And my backlog grew with a million titles. I played a couple other shoot 'em ups in the span of a couple weeks and whatever, and I still have so much more to explore there. But that was really one of those experiences where something clicked, and suddenly you have a whole new area to learn about that you have never engaged with before. I love those moments. That's like a prime
Yes.
gateway experience in my eyes. And Space Moth Highly recommend that. It feels to me as well like that's a really good entry point bullet hell game because it's not too hardcore.
Right.
Beautiful game. Yeah.
So, as you may have guessed by the fact that my avatar is a Toho character on the forums, I'm
Oh
really
yeah,
big into
yeah, yeah.
Toho. So, first off, I've immediately added this game to my wish list because it seems really cool. So,
Hell
thank you
yeah.
for another one to add on there. But
Yeah.
just hearing how you got into shmups, is really cool. I will say I highly recommend trying some Toho games, and I can even talk about them if you have any interest sometime.
I have some on my list. I have to play some
Yeah.
of those for
You
sure.
have
Yeah.
to. I agree. I mean, if you do, I might even kind of play along with you. I've wanted to get back into playing their games for a while, but I'm going to segue this into like what I feel are like the gateway / formative games to how I play a lot of shooters, not like FPS shooters, but like kind of more the shmuppy shooters or
Yeah.
kind of things like that. Because I feel like I've played very few like FPS or third-person shooters in my life. Not none. I've played like Call of Duty 2 or whatever, but not many. But I would say it's definitely a combination of Star Fox 64, which like I got definitely when I was younger on the Nintendo 64, and is definitely one of my favorite games. It's really good. It has insane replayability. Just it's got the good blend of being really cheesy, but not so cheesy. It feels like it's a self-serious joke. It's more like these are serious events that's like an action movie. But then I'd kind of say like the thing that got me into more of the shmuppy kind of games, unsurprisingly, is just the first Windows Toho game, which is Toho Embodiment of Scarlet Devil, which I've never beaten. I really want to
Yeah.
go back
Okay.
and beat it sometime because I've gotten like reasonably close. I feel like all I have to do is put in the time, especially nowadays. But I kind of feel like I had the same reaction as Matt in some ways because I definitely saw videos of the gameplay because I found it through like the music, unsurprisingly. So I saw
Yeah, of
videos of
course,
the
as
gameplay
most
first.
do, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, very common. But like I see the video of the gameplay, it looks super difficult, crazy kind of thing. But while it is difficult, it's never as difficult as it looks if you're just kind of watching, kind of thing. I completely agree with that. Like you said, the way you can shift your hurt box, the way that shots work, the way you can adjust your speed, all that stuff. There's so many ways to kind of work with it, and I still haven't plumbed deep into the shmup genre, but just discovering those games when I was relatively young, because I was such a huge Toho fan, I still am, definitely was just a gateway into that genre that stuck with me to this day. So I kind of just wanted to add that on.
Yeah, and those Toho games also seem. I mean, they add a lot of the reputation to how difficult this genre is, and I do want to, in my life, have beaten one Toho game at some point. That would be
Yeah,
huge. That's a goal I
I
have.
I think I think you definitely can do it. I do find it funny. I think a lot of bullet hell the hardcore bullet hell people think the Toho games are like on the easy side too, which is always
Probably,
terrifying
yeah.
to think of. But
Yeah,
like
yeah,
for
yeah.
normal people.
Exactly, yeah.
uh I have one or two more. So just really quickly, I'm gonna say one thing that definitely was a big gateway game for me that was like an older game is in part because like the way this gateway was is it didn't introduce like this one is actually what I would say a different kind of gateway game because it wasn't like it changed my mind or introduced it to me. But like ever since I was younger, I've always been interested in like strategy or tactical RPGs. But I always just kind of was bad when I tried them, basically. So I always kind of bounced off it, and then I would come back, kind of thing. And for whatever reason, when I purchased Fire Emblem Three Houses for the Switch, which I had heard really good things about. the way that it kind of introduced how you play a Fire Emblem game in the correct way just kind of really, for some reason, just made the entire kind of energy click for me in my head. And I played over 100 hours of that game probably in the span of like 2 months, to give you an idea, kind of thing. But after bouncing off that genre over and over and over, Three Houses made it click for me. And then I went back and I completed like every GBA Fire Emblem game, and I completed Awakening, and I started going into the other ones. So that was kind of a gateway for me, not because I was like introduced or changed my mind, but just because I was never able to actually really get the genre until that game hit me in the head, kind of thing. Yeah. And then finally, this isn't a genre per se, but it is relevant, I suppose, to stuff like Drake and the 99 Dragons. But like,
Oh gosh.
me hearing somebody on Backwatch review a game called Heavy Nova, which is really bad, by the way, and just talking about how much it sucked, and then one day just like you know what, I'm gonna try this game and I'm gonna fire up with my friends because they were laughing at the review too. I would say just got me on something I now sometimes do, which is like, we'll just be laughing about a game and I'll just put it on stream and we'll kind of just use it as the background for talking or just messing around. And just kind of, an interest in exploring bad games, I suppose, is how to put it.
Yeah.
And just kind of having fun with friends about it. Heavy Nova kind of got that going for me.
On that note, I frequently say many bad games are still worth checking out just because of how interesting they are. And I much rather take an interesting bad game over a. I think I said this in this episode. Much rather take this than a solid functioning one, a mediocre functioning one. I'm repeating myself at this point. Sorry about
interesting bad. It's fine. An interesting bad game is indeed fun. And Heavy Nova is indeed interesting. It's the only fighting game I've ever played where crouching makes you completely invincible.
Hell yeah. Like in real life.
Just like in real life.
Sounds very realistic.
Kind of thing.
Unless anybody got any more, I guess we could move on to guess the game.
Sounds like it's about that time. So for the listeners, it is time for our, I was going to say annual, that's the wrong word, for our...
Annual.
Yeah.
Per year, that's the only one you get.
It is time for our Guess the Game segment. So I'm sure if you're listening to episode 8 of the season, you are familiar with how the rules work at this point. But as a general overview, I will be reading some completion times and play notes submitted by various How Long to Beat users for a game that I've selected. My co-hosts will have to try to guess which game I've chosen, and the hints will get more detailed as we go along. So the sooner they guess it, the more points they earn. All right. Is everyone ready for these hints?
Yes.
Ready to get 0 points again. Thank you very much.
Well, the good news is this is a game that you have beaten. So I made sure to choose a game that Matt has beaten. So there's hopefully Matt and Leah have beaten this one.
All right, but not me. Also,
not
just
Roy.
One thing on that note, one thing that was in the rules that we added is you get a bonus point if the game was not on your complete list, but you correctly guess it.
True.
Okay, so I have a couple hints to read for this game because you'll see it. Okay, so the first hint that I'm going to read is by user Moostronaut. This is for just main story completion time. Their main story completion time was 2 hours, 1 minute, and they wrote, recommend playing the game in one sitting, which is not super informative. So I have another hint to read you all, submitted by an anonymous user. Their completion time was 1 hour and 30 minutes. And by the way, both these users, both Moostronaut and an anonymous user, played this game on PC. And Anonymous, whose completion time was 1 hour, 30 minutes, says second half is just walking.
The second half is just walking. I've beaten this, and Leah and Roy have not.
You and Leah have beaten it. Roy has not.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah. Leah and I have beaten this
on PC.
Second
2 hours.
On PC.
This is basically just has to be like
Firewalk?
The whole game is just walking, not just the second half.
That's fair.
Come on, dog.
Well, but if it's like after the radio part, there's gotta be some
that
kind
doesn't
of
make sense to me.
way.
It's definitely some weird, stupid PC indie game.
The problem is I probably don't even know where it is.
Fuck, I'm blanking on everything.
Indie game. Second half is walking. Recommended you play in one city. Why would you want to play it in one city?
This doesn't make much sense to me either, but I don't have a better guess right now. I'm gonna say Superliminal. But I don't think that's it.
So second half is only walking. That means the first half is not only walking. So it's gonna be like you.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like you complete and you're like, you know, journeying away or something.
I'm very curious about this. Definitely not Ridge Racer.
No. It's on PC, so that won't even. I was gonna guess something, and I realized that game's not even on PC. So that
Maybe there's a
quite
port you
waste.
don't know about.
No, I don't think Dr. Mario 64 ever came.
It's gonna be it.
Yeah, okay. That's probably true.
Not overall, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to remember games, like names.
I'm just trying to remember games.
Tetris 2.
I'm gonna guess Fee.
Alrighty, well, some news. Matt is now on the board. He has points finally.
No!
the game was Superliminal. So
Nice.
Leah and I currently have 5 points, and Matt and Roy both have 3.
Isn't
I will say I don't know that I agree.
walking?
Yeah, I don't know that I agree with the
I don't remember
comment
the
that the second
ending.
half of Superliminal is just walking. I feel like there's a lot more that happens in that. But
Yeah.
Like, if
Makes
the
no
second
sense
half
to
is
me.
walking, the entire thing is walking.
I mean,
Yeah.
but you do puzzles
Yeah.
as well.
No, I know, but I mean,
But
like,
yeah, but
I mean, if you say
Walk
the
from
second
puzzle-
I
half
mean,
is walking,
Superliminal-
it's like,
Superliminal is walking in the way
Like,
Portal is walking.
yeah. Yeah.
That's spot on. I agree with that.
That's what I'm trying to get at. If you say the second half is just walking, what makes it different from the first half for that guy?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Maybe if I'm trying to give it a charitable interpretation, maybe you could say that the pacing of the puzzles is heavier on the front half of the game than, like, you know, there's more.
I could
I
see
don't know.
that, yeah.
I'm trying to I'm trying to throw them a bone.
Did they just complete all the puzzles and then have to actually walk to the end or something? Is that possible in that game? I don't
I don't
know.
remember an especially long walk. I don't know.
I mean, there was one point where I had a super long walk because I accidentally shrunk myself down to like teeny tiny size. And I was like, it was
Yeah.
in one of those like shower room segments, and I was trying to get into like the inflatable house or something, and I made myself way too small.
Yeah.
To walk across the map took me like half an hour. I was like, I feel like this is not how the game is supposed to be played.
Oh,
I feel like I've messed up here.
Definitely not. That's
Maybe
user
that's
error.
Maybe that's what
Yeah.
happened to them. They got into a spot where it took them so long to walk from one location to another. That's what the second half was. That would actually make sense.
I guess. So what did you say? How many points? Is that 3 points?
So you now
3
have 3
points?
points.
That's crazy.
Yes. So you and Roy are tied at 3, and Leah and I have 5.
Dang.
Still anyone's game midway through the year. No one's kind of pulled away.
Indeed.
I was kind of hoping to go through the whole season with 0 points. That would be awesome. Oh, well.
You should have thrown.
Yeah.
Should have thrown.
If you're curious about the other hints that I had prepared, one of them for Main Game Plus, user Xeros the Sky Pirate had a completion time of 3 hours and 5 minutes and said, completed story, 6 out of 23 achievements earned, no challenge mode or developer commentary mode, great experience. And then for the final round, I was going to throw in some comments about that mentioned like alarm clocks and stuff, maybe like the hidden
Right.
endings, all that kind of stuff, fire extinguishers. But you
Right.
didn't even need all those hints.
The second one probably
Developer
would have made me
commentary
guess
would have been a good
Stanley
hint too.
Parable.
Yeah, that I was in that space as well, but again, that's all walking, literally
Right.
all walking.
Right. I mean, the
Oh,
thing
yeah.
is, I don't
That's
think I probably would have even thought about Superliminal because it's like not even on my backlog. I don't even I think it's on my wish list, but
It's
That's so
so
good.
fucking good, man.
Apparently, it's on
Oh,
PlayStation Plus. I'm gonna make my dad play.
hell yeah. All right. I guess that
We did it.
that superliminal guest brings us to the super end of this episode.
As always, feel free to contact us via the email address linked in the show notes or reach out on the
Yes.
Discord or the forums.
yeah, I'd be really
Exactly.
interested in what other people's gateway games are myself.
Yeah.
And the very first game that you remember playing.
Yeah.
And if you organize your games with articles first, like a weirdo such as me.
That should be illegal. Do not do that. All right.
You can't stop me, no matter how bad of an
I
idea
wish
it
I could.
is.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you listen to us again in the future. And goodbye.
Farewell.